Hello to all the early heads in chat. Enjoy some weird ass fucking music, and we'll be starting in a second. Thank you very much for joining me today. Well, that is one long-ass fucking song. Holy shit. I would have started earlier. It's like, let me wait for the song to end. Turns out it's 9 minutes. Music used to be fucking 10 minutes long back in the day. Talk about the market improving things. There's probably like 50 videos on that topic. On BreadTube or whatever you want to refer to it as. Welcome, chatters. Welcome. Thank you, Marley Senpai, for the 6 months. Thank you, V2 Tax, for the 8 months. You beautiful sons of bitches. Sons of my bitch. Bitch of my son. Thank you very much. Thank you very much. Welcome to yet another stream with your boy Yugo. It might be Tuesday, but with me, it is always a motherfucking Friday. I have a fun news/theory show in store for you this fine day. I think we're going to have some fun. We're going to learn a little bit, and we're going to experience the title of today's stream, which is pretty much Comrade Trump leading the front when it comes to wholesale American harikiri, seppuku, or whatever you would like to call it. But before we start, how are you guys doing? I poured myself some coffee. I couldn't find any aces, for fuck's sakes. So I'm doing a 2 out of 6 Velo. I got my massive thick ass fucking jug ready. Look how much water this thing contains. Look, I have a very large head, by the way. This is a very large jug. How are you guys doing? Today I went to see a friend of mine, like a big business friend of mine. He's a very big businessman, but he's very nice. I ate some like fancy meat or whatever the fuck. I could barely park because it's in the part of town that doesn't really have one of those like SMS systems for parking, so everybody parks wherever they want. It took me like 40 minutes to park. Not 40, 20, but it felt like 40. Casually sipping on a triple shot. Yeah, this is a double shot. And I'm sipping it at basically between 4 p.m. and 6 p.m., which I wonder why I have a horrible time sleeping. And then I realize that it's because I drink a coffee every time I stream. I went to Toronto to help the Communist Party with canvassing. That is very nice. Thank you for your service, Comrade Internet. Thank you very much. You're the opposite of the Turk. Big head, yes. I'm a big head man. You should see my girlfriend's head. It's fucking massive. 5 o'clock vodka. No, that's another update. So yeah, updates-wise, today I did nothing special. Last time I saw you was on Sunday. Yesterday was basically a React day. I rewatched Django, the Tarantino movie. It's very, very fucking good. My girlfriend hadn't watched it, so we rewatched it yesterday. And I downloaded the fucking medieval game. I'm going to start playing the medieval game once I get past the tutorial sections. When I find the time, I will utilize it as a streaming experience. So look forward to that, the Gamer Frogs.
Chat. There is a snake in my boots. Help. Boing. NVM chat. The hammer to my sickle saved me.
Thank you, Officer Gabby, for $3. I believe you can test it that text-to-speech now works for 300 bits and over. So for 300 bits and over, I think the system should read it out. I am not promising anything, but I believe the system reads it out. What are we going to do today? The other update. Dry February is continuing. Today is what? What do I have the whole screen? Today is February 18th, quite literally 10 days left. I have survived 18 days. I need to survive, what is that, 40% of how much I've survived more. It's been tough. It's been tough. The brain working at 100% capacity is a curse I would not wish upon my greatest of enemies. From your eyebrows, I think you are Luigi. Dude, literally the guy copied my fucking aesthetic, bro. It's fucking cursed. Yeah, it is painful. It is painful. Especially the birthday I went to on Saturday. It was like fucking 30 Russians and Ukrainians and Kazakhs fucking drinking like crazy and forcing me into a cheer because, there is no such thing amongst general Eastern Europeans like respecting somebody who's either on a cleanse or does not drink. That does not exist. Maybe if you're Muslim, people are going to chill the fuck out. But every other category, you will be very toxically encouraged to consume the devil juice. Back to the ball just in time for Ramadan. Oh, holy shit, yeah. And I'll be seeing Hakeem actually in March. So is it going to be Ramadan in that period? I don't know when it is. That's going to be so whack. Ever read Terry Pratchett? What the fuck? Knurd. Hello, Knurd. You are Knurd. Who is Knurd, motherfucker? Toasty starting with the provocatia. Knurd. Consider the following. Being drunk is to be intoxicated by alcohol to such an extent as to be unable to perceive the world clearly through the senses. Being sober is to be able to perceive the world clearly through the senses. Humans are quite capable of giving themselves illusions and little stories to make life more bearable. Being knurd is to be unintoxicated with klachi and coffee to such an extent that all such comfort stories are stripped away from the mind. This makes you see the world in a way nobody ever should, in all its harsh reality. That's fascinating. I will definitely try knurd, but I do like consume booze in a Knurdian way, because through the consumption of ethanol, social stigmas that arise from more radical thinking simply wash away, and you can participate in self-reflection on both Marxist theory, but also more like existentialist thought by yourself or with friends. Also, it's like extremely cheap therapy. I'm not saying that it can replace your therapy, but I am saying that there's a reason most Balkan people don't need to go to the therapist, because they have friends they drink with. Also, maybe the most important thing that you guys will appreciate, I have a crazy amount of new soundboards, okay? Prepare.
Of course you do. It's like my Uncle Kagi once said, with great power comes great big booty bitches.
What the hell? Oh my
God!
Way,
Yay. I have so many, bro.
How about new?
Wait, let me show you all of them. So.
How about new? FBI, open up! Bruh.
This one's my favorite.
They ask you how you are, you just have to say
This
that
one
you're
is so
fine
good.
when you're not really fine, but you just can't get into it because they would never understand.
That one is so good. This is a classic, right? I'm moving the way you're not moving. Okay, we got. Yes, I had to put a boomer one in there. Okay, I had to put a boomer one in there. This one, I don't. This one is incredible.
Rum diddly dum dum, rum diddly dum dum, rum diddly dum.
Really good, right?
What the hell?
Ew.
Oh my God, no way.
The sounds are very quiet compared to your voice volume level. I think that's intentional so I can spam it. I can't increase them more. I literally, like, they're maxed out. They're maxed out, so they'll stay at that rate.
We do not care.
This is a classic. This is an eternal classic. Next one. That one I'm gonna use and abuse so much. For wrong answer, when chat is wrong, this is what you will hear.
Why are you running? Why are you running?
And an eternal classic, of course. Okay. So never, exactly. And which one did I tell you? What, this one?
What the hell? Oh my God.
2,000 years later.
Of course you do. It's
Okay, this one. Okay, those are the new ones. Those are pretty much the new ones. I will try to master the skill of utilizing my soundboards as best as I can, fellow chatters. And once I learn it, I'll add more of them. Okay? Okay, very good. Indeed. Now, what are we going to be talking about today? Well, the continuation of Eternal American Seppuku, Donald Trump as the amalgamation of the beginning of the end of American empire, blah, 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 cringe, nerd-ass fucking ML sentences. Bro, America's shit, so they picked a shit president who's making America even more shit. And he's making everything so shit that it ironically is a good thing for the rest of the world, because it is completely removing the United States foreign military industrial complex from a lot of the parts of the world where it should never have been present. It is driving allies away, including an ally that was quite literally fighting with incredible intensity and pride for 2 years, giving their thousands and thousands of their sons to the cause, with the idea that they will always have, that America will always have their back, at least when it comes to the ammunition and weaponry that they need in order to fight their enemy. Here I'm talking about Ukraine being pretty much, as of now, the most fucked over party in this entire conversation. A party so fucked over, as it seems in the current negotiation process for the end of the war, that it fell upon the Ukrainians themselves, something nobody ever had on their bingo card, to turn to the Europeans and say, yo, these Americans are whack as fuck. Why the fuck did we think that they would always have our back? We need to think about independence. So yeah, incredible things are happening. Comrade Trump is really helping the cause. Let's see where it goes. Obviously, CNN and BBC is covering this extensively, and they are doing hardcore motherfucking. I don't know if you've seen the crying politician. This is the correct take on him. Yeah, of course it's deleted. Of course it's gone. Why wouldn't it be gone? Of course it's gone. I can't even Google it like this. Jesus Christ. I hate X so much. I can't find the right link.
After the speech of Vice President Vance on Friday, we have to fear that our common value base is not that common anymore. I'm very grateful to all those European politicians that spoke out and reaffirmed the values and principles that they are defending. No one did this better than President Zelensky. Let me conclude, and this becomes difficult.
Pathetic Eurocucks being pathetic Eurocucks. Instead of utilizing this as a wake-up call that over 70 years of continuously riding America's dick and calling that sovereignty, instead of utilizing this moment to wake up from that fucking cuckold stupor and say, fuck these motherfuckers, we are taking our own destiny back into our own hands, he is crying. And crying about what? Crying about what? What exactly will the European Union and Europe in general lose by finally realizing that decoupling from America is the only way for them to get some sort of sovereignty back. He is crying because he cannot even imagine a future in which the European Union is not a literal walking stick of U.S. empire, of U.S. interests, of U.S. trade, of U.S. resource extraction. This man is happy with the EU being turned into basically a money laundering and resource extraction fucking condom. And now that it can no longer continue, potentially, his reaction isn't one of anger, isn't one of pride, isn't one of understanding that the choices that have been made are what brought them to this point. No, he is sad. He is sad. This is equal to an abused fucking partner crying about having been left by the abuser. Do you understand me, chatters? Thank you, Great Goat, you fucking goat, for the 5 gifties, brother. Thank you very much, my friend. That is what this fucking situation is. And you should not feel any pity for these people, for they have fully redefined the idea of the European Union not as this or that project that you can agree or disagree with, but they have simply said, we are like these few countries in a union away from the United States that do absolutely everything that the United States tells them to do. And now the US is literally like, dude, fuck off, like we don't care. Throwing him away, not like a fucking side bitch, but a fucking fifth chick whose name you don't even know. Or guy, of course. We do not discriminate. Boys and girls and NBs can be side bitches in chat, okay? So yes, exceptionally embarrassing. But let's see the BBC coverage.
Well, on the right of your screen there, you'll see the American delegation have just sat down. We'll maybe fade the sound in a second, but there you see Steve Witkoff on Marco Rubio's left and Mike Waltz, the National Security Advisor, on his right.
So for those of you who do not know, the Americans and the Russians are currently meeting in Saudi Arabia without the Ukrainians. This is an allegory that speaks for itself. A whole country wanted to defend itself from an invasion. Okay, nobody's defending shit here, like the Russian Federation or whatever. But they proceeded to fight for so long and lose so many of their troops in a fight for, to defend their land, etc., because they knew, at least they were promised, that they're going to have American backing pretty much in perpetuity. But then America was like, yes, sure, give your sons and daughters to this war. We will back you up no matter what. They gave their sons and daughters to this war. And then what happened? America was like, nah, I'm good, brah. I'm good. I'm kind of done with this, whole thing. Can I, not do this anymore? And the Ukrainians are like, bro, we lost, immeasurable amount of people because the idea of, fully pushing out the enemy was worth the sacrifice or whatever the particular Ukrainian ideology might be. And the Americans are like, I was really fucking with that idea the other day, but now I'm kind of like, it's kind of, kind of over it, bro. Kind of over it. So I'm gonna go and talk to the guy and make this end because I want to do other shit. I don't know. Make more departments of state that have the names of animals. Thank you, McGinn, and thank you, Romka. The fact that nobody was invited just gives me so much joy because how blatant it is and how much the Eurolibs will scream from humiliation and cognitive dissonance. Absolutely. That is... to take a good thing out of a arguably pretty bad thing, at least for Ukrainians. This is really bad for Ukrainians. But to remove ourselves from, let's say, any compassion and think purely as anti-imperialists, This is a massive first stepping stone towards the disillusionment of the entire world, but in this case, even the West, even America's closest allies, in believing that there is a long-term sustainable future in which the U.S. will actually treat them as partners and not as colonies to be thrown away the second they are no longer useful either for domestic politics or for their long-term imperial plan. So, yeah, if there's any positive out of this situation is, as I've said in a couple of previous streams, is that Comrade Trump is speed-running American decline faster than anybody could have guessed. And he is creating enemies in places that, again, nobody could have guessed, including the current Ukrainian administration. So, yeah, JD Pawn Dawn, bro. JD Pawn Dawn. Thank you for the hype train, baby! It's the start of the stream, so I'm not going to do Chinese TikToks immediately. But if we reach like level 5 hype train, I'll move to the Chinese TikToks as a small break. Thank you very much for everybody hyping. Thank you very, very much, Ka.
All right, let's just listen in.
The geopolitical and economic cooperation that could result from an end to the conflict in Ukraine. Obviously, we have to see that conflict come to a successful and enduring end in order for that to be possible. And the last thing we agreed to is that while our teams are going to be working on all of this, the four of us who were here today, the five of us that were here today, are going to remain engaged in this process to make sure that it's moving along in a productive way.
What does an enduring and successful end look like? Did you present any proposals to the Russians today?
Well, there's some underlying principles.
Thank you, Laufrau! Thank you very much, Laufrau.
This needs to be a permanent end to the war and not a temporary end as we've seen in the past. We know just the practical reality.
There you go. So, like, my pitch, I'm going to repeat it, is that the reason that America is shooting itself in the foot is because the executive body of the country cares more about running their party towards success than the long-term interests of American empire, and they are quite literally shooting themselves in the face by even negotiating with the Russians. They could have just made more money by making more fucking weapons and use the Ukrainians and the Russians on the other side, and now even the North Koreans as just like fucking meat to be sent to the slaughter, right? They could have absolutely done that, but because their own individual interests as a party and Trump as a political figure, ironically trump those of even U.S. empire, they are pursuing this particular negotiation. But having said all of that, that doesn't mean that they can go full, full idiot. Never go full idiot. And whatever they are negotiating with the Russians will have systems put in place to limit them from potentially moving westwards, because while it is in Trump's interest to just stop this war right now so he can be deemed as the great peacemaker, he also does not want to get cocked by Putin either and get the Russians moving further westwards, which is, in my opinion, not very likely. Motherfuckers is drawing lines on the map of who controls which markets by the moment. Exactly.
Is that there is going to be some discussion of territory and there's going to be discussion of security guarantees. Those are just fundamental basics that will undergird and underlie any type of discussion. But I think the most important part is the president.
And new people in chat that haven't been here for a few streams before, the main reason the Ukrainians are not being involved is because Trump wants this negotiation to end as quickly as possible. He cannot have it end as quickly as possible if the Ukrainians are at the table as much as they would want to, because they will most likely not agree on anything that the Russians are offering, and vice versa. The Russians will most likely not agree on anything the Ukrainians are offering. Number one. And number two, like in an active war zone where so many hundreds of thousands have lost their life, the president of the so-called losing party, even though I don't think there's a winner in this fucking war, just like in almost any war not based on class, it would be political or even physical suicide for anybody in current Ukrainian leadership to accept the end of the war, which would be redefined domestically as defeat by the opposition parties and even militarized movements inside of Ukraine. Da. My take is that Trump economically like Yeltsin, but more so like Gorbachev, abandoning allies, shrinking its military power, thinking it will be stronger, and just handing the power to its adversaries whilst making its bloc weaker. Incredible moves. Fucking kino, bro. Absolute kino. Absolute kino. But yes, great. If you want to make parallels to historical figures, that's a decent one. Agreed. 50 seconds left of the hype train. If you want Chinese TikTok, we need level 5. Level 5 indeed. This is the music that plays for gifters.
Has stated his desire, his determination to end this war, to end the killing that is going on, the death and destruction that is happening as war to has stated his desire. But I think the most important part is the president.
There you go. This is what I'm telling you. This is Trump's country, okay? Even at the negotiating table with your most aggressive adversary, your negotiators are not primarily talking about what America wants to see, but they're talking about what Donald Trump wants to see, what the president wants to see. It's all just electoral PR. And, I mean, are you really surprised that that's where it goes when your country's run by a fucking decrepit plutocracy, bro?
Has stated his desire, his determination.
Democracy, whatever the fuck you want to call it.
To end this war, to end the killing that is going on, the death and destruction that is happening as this war, goes on and on, month after month after month, in the killing fields of eastern and southern Ukraine is unacceptable. It is not in the interest of either country. It's not in the interest of the world, and certainly not in the interest of the United States and Europe. So all of those things will drive the negotiations going forward. And as you can see,
yeah, but okay, if it's not in the interest of Ukraine, which I agree, it also isn't in the interest of Ukraine, no matter how much I might hurt some Ukrainian comrades that might be in chat. Ending the war at this point, objectively, everything else is cope. I'm sorry, everything else is cope. Ending this war right now with a Trump administration is the best terms on which Russia can end it. By far the best terms. And not to repeat myself, but if the Russians do not try to negotiate now, they're literal fucking imbeciles.
The President Trump is determined to move very quickly. We just had a head of state phone call, the first in years, and here we are less than a week later at the highest level of the U.S. and Russian government, and we expect to continue to drive that pace to not only end the war, but then to unlock what could be very productive and stabilizing relationships going forward.
You mentioned territory. Is it acceptable to the U.S. for Russia to retain any territory that is annexed since the beginning of the war in February 2022?
Well, I think those are things that those are to be discussed. And those are things that will start.
They will obviously cede territory. Here you go. Clip this and throw it back at me if they will cede territory. They would have been completely and hardcore adamant that they will not during the negotiation process or even random fucking interviews like this if they weren't considering it. And now, is it completely fucking idiotic to openly talk about ceding territory instead of saying, no, we will not? And then during the negotiation, when they try to extract more of you, you're like, okay, I'll agree to ceding territory. Yes, it is very fucking idiotic to like openly state what you're ready to give to the so-called enemy. but maybe that's part of the analysis. Maybe that warrants being part of the analysis as well, because I don't think they perceive it as the enemy at the current moment.
Wonderful, a new child soldier.
You know, maybe the long-term idea of Trump as a peacemaker in the next 4 years is not simply to stop the war, but also to stabilize relations with Russia, which like further is just going to push the European Union and Ukraine away from them. You can attempt to try and find some rationality in that kind of like imperial approach. Thank you very much, Expert with the Prime, and thank you, Sinoms. Thank you very much. Welcome to the community, my friends. Thank you very, very much. What did I want to say? Yeah, you might think, okay, this is some long-term shit. Like, but I genuinely don't think it is. This is just the Trump administration rushing any sort of peace deal so that they can tap themselves on the back. But let's imagine there is a greater like idea of where they could take this. The closest to a right-wing ideologue, which he at this point genuinely is, when it comes to, except because he kind of fucked up with like anti-Israeli comments, Tucker Carlson, this is his general pitch basically. We need to have not warm but fucking brotherly relations with the Russian Federation, because they are a neoliberal capitalist, quoting him, Christian country. By Christian he means white, right? Even though up until recently they didn't consider us Slavs white, but okay, now we're all of a sudden fucking white. No longer orcs of the East, no longer the hordes. And by becoming allies, they can offer a true axis of resistance to China potentially. I believe this is strong cope because of the alliance that has been built between the Russian Federation and the People's Republic of China. But, time can change everything, if you know what I mean. So, yeah, why am I talking about this? If we want to believe that this is not just, completely running on emotions, and that there is some thought behind it, behind what the Americans are right now doing in trying to negotiate with Russia, to repeat myself, is that long-term plan of becoming very close with the Russian Federation and then utilizing them as allies, as a counterpoint to growing Chinese influence. The main criticism of this theory, except it being relatively stupid because China and Russia have such relatively decent and strong alliance, is that in order to get the Russian Federation, you have to lose the European Union. You can't have both. And losing so many fucking NATO members and basically literal flesh puppets that would be utilized against in any sort of war, be it in Taiwan or anywhere else, that is dumb. That is dumb. Unless you're thinking long term, if we have an alliance with Russia and we go to war over Taiwan, the Russians will not participate on either side. But that is fucking hardcore cope. Even though the Russians would not have participated on either side no matter what. Didn't the Treaty of Versailles last like 10 years before essentially collapsing? Same thing could happen here. I think it could, depending on what they define.
Start and do the tough work.
It would just take a ridiculous amount of time for the Russians to recuperate and recreate an army strong enough to potentially attack NATO, number one. And number two, you cannot attack NATO. Like, holy fucking shit, do I need to say why?
Ahead, but the important thing is that we've started that process. And what the president did not find acceptable was an endless war in Europe that was literally has turned into a meat grinder of people on both sides. So if you just think about, just in a few months, President Trump has shifted the entire global conversation from not if the war is going to end, but just how it's going to end.
Holy shit, dude. Like, Putin's dick is like all fucking lubed up and ready to get a little bit orange, if you know what I mean. That would be the plot twist of all time if Trump Tua, if the Russians reject negotiating. That would be so crazy. I don't see it happening. I don't see it happening. Unless, like, I don't know, Putin is so fucking cope-headed that he thinks that he can walk into Kyiv any moment, they will negotiate.
And only President Trump
can Usi will be utilized.
Do that. And in the Oval Office less than a week ago, both President Putin and President Zelensky both said to him, only you, President Trump, could drive this war to a conclusion.
What concessions do you expect?
Well, again, we're not going to pre-negotiate an end to this conflict. These are the kinds of things that have to happen through.
You just did. You just did. You literally just did. You literally said that territories can be negotiated. Which territories go to whom can be negotiated. You are pre-negotiating. You're putting your cock and balls on the fucking table, and you're taking out a ruler, and you're telling your enemy just how big it is. Okay? Why? Why? Because, like, with every single rushed thing in life, including in foreign policy for America and for any other country, when it's rushed, it's fucking bad, dude.
Hard and difficult diplomacy in closed rooms over a period of time. What's important to understand is two things. The first is the only leader in the world who can make this happen, who can even...
Dude, look, they're fucking slobbering his knob in 4K as they're negotiating the stop of the most intense conflict that Europe has seen in half a century, if not more. He's slobbering his knob at that moment. They're not talking about America as a state actor anymore. They're talking about America as a extension of Donald Trump. Like, first worlders in chat might allow this to pass them by, but chatters from the developing world that has very strong man leaders, if you know what I mean, that's what they like. This is the type of shit that we're extremely used to hearing. They will go absolutely anywhere, and their ministers or the representatives of the state would not go somewhere and talk, our country is here and ready to do this or that. They literally go abroad. They go in front of CNN and they're like, our great leader, he is so fucking incredibly based and red-pilled. That's why we're doing all of this, right? So hearing that sort of rhetoric coming from American mouths is also discouraging for Americans, of course, but very encouraging when it comes to seeing it pretty much slowly dissolve into a second world shithole, pretty much. Thank you, Little Red Reno. Thank you very much for the 1 month. Welcome to the community, my friend.
Bring people together to begin to talk about it in a serious way is President Trump. He's the only one in the world that can do that right now. The second thing I would say is that in order for a conflict to end, everyone involved in that conflict has to be okay with it. It has to be acceptable to them. But we have to understand that it's been 3.5 years since there's been any sort of regularized contact between the United States and Russia, and in some cases between any of the participants in this conflict and Russia. So the goal of today's meeting was to follow up on the phone call the President had a week ago and begin to establish those lines of communication. The work remains. Today is the first step of a long and difficult journey, but an important one. And President Trump is committed to bringing an end to this conflict, and as he said when he campaigned for president. And he wants it to end in a way that's fair.
Yeah, when he said that he can end it in a day, yeah, we'll remember that, bro.
He wants it to end in a way that's sustainable and enduring, not that leads to another conflict in 2 to 3 years. That's not going to be easy to achieve, but he's the only one in the world that can begin that process. Donald Trump.
And this they will use, exactly this sentence, we want it to last. They will ironically use to reject Ukrainian claims that want to potentially sabotage the deal. And by sabotage, I don't mean positively or negatively. Obviously, the Ukrainians are going to try and sabotage any deal that leaves Ukraine without some of its territories. or some of its territories being recognized as territories of the Russian Federation. They will sabotage that because, again, political or literal suicide.
Trump is the only leader in the world that could initiate that process, and today was the first step in that process.
Is sanctions relief going to be involved in any of this normalizing or trying to more level set relationship between the U.S. and Russia? Did the Russians bring up sanctions relief in the meeting today?
Well, sanctions are all the result of this conflict. There are sanctions that were imposed as a result of this conflict. And so I would say to you that in order to bring an end to any conflict, there has to be concessions made by all sides. We're not going to predetermine what those are. We're certainly not going to negotiate this today or in a press conference for that matter. But, and there are other parties that have sanctions. The European Union is going to have to be at the table at some point because they have sanctions as well that have been imposed. So, but
at some point, and they will be involved when it comes to us telling them to remove fucking sanctions from the Russians. Holy shit.
I guess the point here is the goal is, and we agreed on what the goal is to bring an end to this conflict in a way that's fair, enduring, sustainable, and acceptable to all parties involved. What that looks like, well, that's what the ongoing engagement is going to be all about.
The Ukrainians and the Europeans have suggested they feel very sidelined about how the process has played out so far. How do you intend to address their concerns? And will they be incorporated in future meetings in a multilateral way?
Well, the comment I would have on that is that for 3.5 years while this conflict has raged, or 3 years while it's raged, no one else has been able to bring something together like what we saw today because Donald Trump is the only leader in the world that can. So no one is being sidelined here. But President Trump is in a...
They are literally telling them, yo, bro, you are fucking incapable. We are not involving you because for 3 years you've never negotiated with the fucking Russians, bitch. But our great big cock fucking throbbing hard right in my face leader, he managed to do it. So fuck you. Who cares? You had your chance. But your dick wasn't as beautiful and orange and long and thick and perfectly sized for Marco Rubio's beautiful, beautiful mouth.
A position that he campaigned on to initiate a process that could bring about an end to this conflict. And from that could emerge some very positive things for the United States, for Europe, for Ukraine, for the world. But first it begins by the end of this conflict. And so the only thing President Trump's trying to do is bring about peace. It's what he campaigned on. It's something the world should be thanking President Trump for doing. He's been able to achieve what for 2.5, 3 years. No.
This is gonna work really well. You do know this. This pitch is going to work fucking miracles for normies all across the world. You do know this. Because realistically, it is a good pitch. Yep, it already works well thanks to mainstream media. No, of course. Yeah. And ironically, look, even I, a fucking resident Marxist, am indirectly saying that long term, except for the Ukrainians, of course, unfortunately, this is a good thing. Because what is happening right now is not in long term U.S. imperial interest. It's just not. It is sabotaging long term U.S. imperial interest. Also, by the way, motherfuckers, you know what I said yesterday? Like I was, imagine if we were fucking stock traders and I told you what to buy, okay? I told you what to buy, right? And guess what happened? I told you, EU military-industrial complex, because they're going to be making their own independent army. If any of you made any fucking money out of that, I want to see gift subs fucking falling through from the sky like it's Christmas, baby. 27% up, brother. 27% up, brother. Okay, brother? Absolute cinema.
No one else has been able to achieve, which is to begin this process, a serious process. Obviously, a lot of work remains before we have a result, but President Trump's the only one that can do it.
Look, it's common sense. If you're going to bring both sides together, you have to talk to both sides. And we'll continue to remind everyone, literally within minutes of President Trump hanging up with President Putin, he called and spoke with President Zelensky. So shuttle diplomacy has happened throughout history. It's happened all over the world. We are absolutely talking to both sides. The Secretary of State just met with President Zelensky days ago, along with the Vice President, 7 cabinet members in Europe at the same time, really showing the importance of engaging our allies. President Trump spoke with President Macron just yesterday. Prime Minister Starmer is coming to Washington next week. So I think the facts will continue to push back on this notion that our allies haven't been consulted. They are being consulted literally almost on a daily basis, and will continue to do so.
Did you set a date for the 2 presidents to meet at this meeting? When can we expect that meeting?
We did not. We did not set that date, but the 2 presidents talked about meeting and expect to meet.
Can you take us a little bit in the room today? What was the interaction like? How would you characterize the discussions?
It was positive, upbeat, constructive. Everybody there to get to the right outcome, solution-based. We discussed it afterwards. We couldn't have imagined a better result after this session. It was very, very solid.
Will you be traveling to Russia again, Mr. Witkoff?
I'm not sure, but we'll make that determination.
Sorry, I needed to take the pee-pee!
In the next couple of weeks.
The Europeans, Keir Starmer. The UK Prime Minister has said the U.S. needs to back any sort of European solution to the war. Is this something that you are willing to
In the next couple of weeks.
The Europeans, Keir Starmer, the UK Prime Minister has said the U.S. needs to back any sort of European solution to the war.
Dude, Rubio wants to say we do not give a shit about what the Europeans want. They are not fucking relevant. So hard. He wants to say it so fucking hard. I mean, he indirectly said it in the previous question. I mean, look at this guy smirk. He's like, we do not give a shit. Europe who? Bro.
How about no?
Yeah. Like who? What? Who?
The war, is this something that you are willing to commit to?
Well, I think that's something that we'll continue to discuss. We have certainly, again, as a first principle, a European-led security guarantee. We have the President, many of us, as members of prior members of Congress ourselves, have called for the Europeans to continue to contribute to our common defense, to continue to share the burden of NATO defense. We'll continue to point out that while things have improved, starting with President Trump's first term, the fact that 1/3 of our NATO allies still do not contribute the minimum of 2% of their GDP to defense a decade after that we all collectively made that agreement isn't acceptable. We have the NATO summit coming up this June, and we would expect with the type of conflict, the type of warfare and destruction we've seen in Europe, sadly, the last several years, that we have 100% at the minimum, and in fact are exceeding.
They're literally saying, yo, bro, you want protection? Money. Oh, you want to sit at the table? Money.
So, yeah.
Oh, dude, the fucking, like, this is, late stage of empire means less and less masks, less and less dog whistling, just pure, raw, uncut, big eats small. And the European Union is small.
Look, this is a common effort. This isn't just about what the United States.
Mafia shit. Who do you think the mob learned it from, brother? Who do you think the mob learned it from, brother? These motherfuckers, okay?
is going to continue to contribute, and what we are going to continue to ask of the American taxpayer. We all have to make those tough decisions. We all have to contribute.
I'm curious, what happens after Empire? We are all dead or China is rescuing us all? I have absolutely no fucking idea. But I know that anything is better than this, at least for non-Americans, respectfully.
To our common defense, and we expect that.
Nice country. Shame if something would happen to it. I'm gonna milk these fucking buttons.
This to be a two-way street for our European allies, and the fact that both the United Kingdom, France, and others are talking about contributing more forcefully.
Do you guys like how big my fucking... Do you guys see just how big my Zin Tower is? I don't think you comprehend how large this Zin Tower is. Just quite impressive. Look, chatters are right next to the Zin Tower. Oh.
To Ukraine's security, we think is a good thing.
Did you walk away from this
Look at all those shit brands. Pandas, I can't find like a PO box that I can use for you to send me like the good shit. I'll figure it out.
meeting convinced the Russians want peace? You said it might take some time to be convinced of that.
Make a twin tower next to it. I don't copy other streamers, bro. Okay? This isn't the twin tower shit. This is the fucking Babylonian shit, okay? This is a allegory of human greed, where we believe that we can build something so big it can touch the heavens, okay? The Tower of Babylon, but it's Zins. It's very metaphoric. It's a piece of art. You can buy it for 700,000 euros.
I mean, I don't view diplomacy that way. I think diplomacy ultimately is based on actions. It's based on commitments that are kept. So I think I came away today convinced that they are willing to begin to engage in a serious process to determine how and how quickly and through what mechanism.
Bro, I don't know, like, what fucking degrees these journalists have. The European Union and the Ukrainians will not agree on the shit that we will agree on. That's why they're not at the table, because we want this to end, because Emperor Trump is beautiful and makes the best peace. He makes the best deals. The deal of the trade is the trade of the deal. So shut the fuck up and let us do our thing. That's what they would all like to say if they were able to say it. That's the advanced, complex fucking analysis of the situation. Now, please give me a BBC fucking salary.
Can an end be brought to this war? Whether we can ultimately reach that outcome will obviously depend on every side in this conflict's willingness to agree to certain things. So I think it's important to have this meeting because we haven't really had much engagement with the Russians for almost 3 years. And it sets the table for future conversations. How that turns out will be up to the parties and their willingness not just to make commitments but to live by them. That'll be tested in the weeks to come. But I can tell you again, as I reiterate.
In the weeks to come, okay, we have the deadline as well. We have the deadline.
They ask you how you are, you just have to say that you're fine when you're not really fine, but you just can't get into it because they would never understand.
That was footage straight out of Zelensky's office.
President Trump has made it very clear during the campaign he thought this conflict needed to end. He's the only leader in the world that could have started a process that we saw here today, and this process is going to continue. And when you talk about an enduring and sustainable end to the conflict, it means one that's acceptable to everyone involved in it. And that obviously includes Ukraine, but also our partners in Europe, and of course the Russian side as well.
Sorry, I didn't mean to jump in there, but I just wanted to also take
on what he said. Yeah, they don't care.
a moment, I think on behalf of all of us and the President, to thank our partners in Saudi Arabia, to thank our hosts for bringing this together, and particularly the Crown Prince Mohammed bin Salman and his team. We are moving quickly, which means they moved very quickly to be such gracious hosts, and we certainly are all appreciative.
Absolutely.
The last question, will the Saudis take on a more active mediation?
The Saudis are like, I do not want war. Not because I love the peace, but because the oil must flow.
role as these talks move forward?
Well, that's a decision for the kingdom to make, but I can tell you that the Kingdom of Saudi Arabia is playing an indispensable role in making today possible. Not just hosting us, but bringing the parties together to have these conversations. I think it's something we're very...
Hey, Hugo, Hollow Knight Silk song ever comes out this year. Could you please stream a playthrough of the game? I'll Google what the game is. Hollow Knight Silk. Hollow Knight Silk. Hollow Knight Silk. Oh, I suck so much, bro. Thank you, but I suck so much at platformers, bro. You don't want me to. You don't want me to, my friend. You do not want me to. But I will play the medieval game soon. Apparently, you can become an alcoholic and fight people with sticks. And that's exactly my playthrough style. I'm going to be a dirty, drunkard knight that pummels people with large sticks. Kingdom cum de l'Ekrikiki.
Very grateful for. Something we're very grateful.
That's just your life? Dude, it's not because I never actually get drunk.
For the partnership that we have with them on a host of it.
So life in the Balkans? No, we are not dirty. Everything else, yeah, pretty much.
Issues, and this being one of them, where we thank them for doing it, and we hope that they will. I think they've offered, and I believe that they will continue to be helpful in any way they can.
Same, the way I'm extremely helpful when I tell you that the Sigma Walk is only reserved to non-ad watchers, like the ones that will skip the ad that plays in exactly 2 minutes and 30 seconds by becoming a subscriber for $6 a month or for free through Prime, or by gifting to those less privileged than you, because what is more Sigma than oiling me up? Thank you very much. The ad plays in 2 minutes and 30 seconds. Top of the hour ad break.
Thanks.
Can I just I'll be extremely brief. So what is the next step?
So I think the three men in your picture are just posing for photographs. That was quite an informative last few minutes. So there you see Marco Rubio, the Secretary of State, the new Secretary of State, who's talking again, that's listening.
At the diplomatic side, just to ensure that our diplomatic missions...
Did you get the Soviet anthem on the sound pad already? That's a good idea. I didn't think of that. I will.
...can function. There's been a series of reciprocal actions taken over the last 10 years that have really diminished our ability to operate in Moscow, as an example, and they would argue their ability to operate in Washington. We're going to need to have vibrant diplomatic missions that are able to function normally in order to be able to continue these conduits. The second is a high-level team, including those who are experts on these topics, the technical side, to begin to engage with their side on parameters of what an end to this conflict would look like. And on that
secession of territory and a border populated by NATO soldiers. That's it.
On that front, obviously, there's going to be engagement and consultation with Ukraine, with our partners in Europe and others. But ultimately, the Russian side will be indispensable to this effort, and so that process will begin. And then the third is, together with those other two, is beginning to engage in identifying the extraordinary opportunities.
Ukraine really got screwed. Ukraine got massively screwed. If this goes through, the Russian Federation will get the best deal that it can hope for, ever, and the Ukrainians will most likely get the worst deal that they can hope for. One can make the argument that, maybe the Ukrainian lines can fall and that the Russians can get more out of this, but even with Trump in power, there's going to be too much of an international push to restart supporting the Ukrainians against a larger push by the Russians, which just logistically at this point in time is fucking push Z cope.
That exists, should this conflict come to a acceptable end, the credible opportunities that exist to partner with the Russians geopolitically on issues of common interest, and frankly economically on issues that hopefully will be good for the world and will also improve our relations in the long term between these two important countries.
Yeah, they want to, yeah, dude, literally, they are doing the Tucker Carlson ideological shift when it comes to America's positioning against its main threat as they perceive it, which is China. this main incredible threat that is just minding their own business and developing their infrastructure and economy. What the fuck was the point of the Ukrainian counteroffensive a few months ago? Why didn't they negotiate in late 22, early 23 after the successful counteroffensive? It doesn't make sense. Yeah, because long term, the Biden administration would have never negotiated. They would have continued this war until potentially all Ukrainian land is retaken, or even, as they've said indirectly plenty of times, and their allies were allowed to say during the Biden presidency, of Ukraine even potentially joining NATO. That was basically the gamble. Why not in 22? Why not in 23? Because we might potentially win. But now that gamble most likely will look like it has failed. And as always, it's the working men and women, in this case, both of Russia and Ukraine and the DPRK to an extent, that have paid that price.
So all three of those efforts will be happening in conjunction with one another. Obviously, the diplomatic one is one we hope to move pretty quickly on, because this involves the treatment of our respective missions. The second one will be difficult, which is the question of Ukraine and the end of that conflict. But I think that's essential in order for the third piece to even be possible.
Which ironically is an Obama nation administration policy called the pivot to Asia. Yeah, I remember that.
Which is our ability to work together on other geopolitical matters of common interest, and of course,
let's hear that again.
but I think that's essential in order for the third piece to even be possible, which is our ability to work together on other geopolitical matters of common interest, and of course, some pretty unique, potentially historic economic partnerships as well. The key that unlocks the door for those opportunities, however, is the end to this conflict.
In terms of when does the high-level team meet? Is there been any date?
There's no date set, but as President Trump is, as you've seen over the last 4 weeks, not patient in terms of getting action. He drives hard. He wants to get things done. He's been wanting to do this, and he's moving very quickly to fulfill the promises he made to the American people when they elected him as our president.
Okay, and then in terms of number one, in the restoration of the diplomatic missions, you'll remember that the first big tit of the tit for tats was after the Skripal poisoning, and the U.S. under one of your predecessors, Mr. Tillerson, expelled a lot of Russian diplomats, to which they responded. The consulate in St. Petersburg got closed down by the Russians. You guys closed down the consulate in Seattle, several others. Are those going to reopen?
Well, that's what we're going to be talking about. And but ultimately, again, I'm not going to negotiate or work on that in public. That's what these channels will be about. But ultimately, what the goal we need
Yes, he's saying yes.
to have is we have to have some normalcy in our missions and in their ability to function.
Dude, you can use this for pointing at things. Ah, shit, yeah, I can, yeah. I didn't know it had a sound. Wait, what's the sound?
Here I come.
Son of a bitch, yes! Oof, I want to download it right now. Okay.
In the main embassies, even.
And in the main
just the
embassies
main
in
embassies,
particular,
regardless of the consulates.
I mean, if our diplomatic channels are broken, it's going to be very difficult to consistently engage on a host of topics, including some unrelated irritants that could derail the broader talks on Ukraine. So there has to be some improvement in the way our missions are able to work and in the environment and space that they're given to operate in. So that's something we want to move on quickly, and it's important to set the table for the other two things that we want to do. But I think the key really in all of this is ultimately going to be whether an agreement can be reached with all parties involved on an acceptable resolution to the conflict in Ukraine. Because if that happens, not only will the world be a better place, but I think there will be some pretty...
Okay, let's see if it works.
Here I come. Here I come.
Okay, kind of works-ish. You need to cut the part where he says, "Here I come." I'm about to come.
Here I come.
And it's very low volume. We need to increase volume.
Unique opportunities to work with them on.
Hey, Hugo, how do I get access to edit of your regular stream suggestions playlist without having a Discord? Because I can't. Send them from time to time here, I guess. But it's mostly, unfortunately, on Discord. You can, from time to time, ping one of the mods if you feel like it. Just, get a list together. Don't text them all the time. Thank you.
Areas of bilateral geopolitical interest and some very unique economic opportunities. But we have to get the Ukraine situation resolved first in a way that's acceptable to everyone.
Okay, my last one. But does that mean if you get the staffs back to the normal operational level and staffs at the embassies, that you consider the Skripal case of the Crimea annexation to be closed? There are no longer issues? Because I think, you mentioned that Keir Starmer is going to be in Washington next week.
Yeah, dude, yeah. They're saying that the things that are hardcore in U.S. interest, they will abandon because we want to score political points. And political points they will score.
Okay,
That's why I'm doing the Marxist accelerationism.
I can imagine that the Brits won't be particularly.
I'm not going to negotiate or talk through every element of the disruptions that exist or have existed in our diplomatic relations and the mechanics of it. Suffice it to say that President Trump has pledged and intends to keep his promise to do everything he can to bring an end to this conflict. We cannot do that unless we have at least some normalcy in the way our diplomatic missions operate in Moscow and in Washington, D.C. And so we need to work to improve that, and we're going to work with them to see what's possible within that context.
Does that include removing Lavrov from rescinding sanctions that have been imposed?
We're just not at that level of conversation yet, but that's there'll be a number.
But the audacity, like the Americans are pushing it even harder. I don't know if any of you saw. But our boys, unironically, not only want to just end this without asking the Ukrainians about jack fucking shit, but they also
we do not care.
Want their money back. Okay? They want their money back. They want
President
Ukraine's natural resources. From what I've seen in the documentation that has been leaked, basically they want 50% of any money that Ukraine makes from its natural resources to literally go to the United States of America as a means to pay them back for the money that they've sent them. I mean, the story writes itself. The worst ally you can ever have. Ever. They change their mind. They always want all the money back. And what did Kissinger say? The worst thing you can be is America's ally, right?
Zelensky.
To pay them back for killing themselves, pretty much.
He has this weekend rejected a bid by the United States for access to $500 billion of mineral resources in return for further military support or security guarantees. I
mean, this, for example, was on everybody's bingo card. This was on everybody's bingo card. I think to an extent even the Ukrainians knew that this sort of day might come, but they might have been ready to negotiate a deal of this sort in the case of a Ukrainian victory in the war. But now, not only will they not receive full victory, one can spin this as a victory because the entirety of Ukraine didn't fall. Sure, this is always subjective. Who wins between nation states in a skirmish such as this? Both countries cope and they define themselves as the victor and they write their own history. But openly giving so much access to their own money now when they're not even going to be supported in negotiations as it's looking is a very, very cocky move.
In an interview with the broadcaster NBC, Mr. Zelensky questioned whether minerals in areas currently held by Russia might be handed over to President Putin. Well, Ukraine holds huge deposits of critical elements and minerals, everything from lithium to titanium. It also has sizable coal deposits as well as oil, gas and uranium. But much of this is in territories that are currently under Russian control. Well, let's speak to Robert Mugger, who's the founder of Yugopnik, the institute. He joins me now from Munich, where he's been attending that conference. Good to have you here. And talk to me first of all about Ukraine's position in the world mineral market. What has it got, and why does America want it?
Well, good to be with you. I mean, the first thing to say is that Ukraine is a critical mineral superpower. It's got about 117 of the 120 minerals that are desired by countries around the world, many of which are desired by the United States and the European Union, and has, as you said, an abundance of hydrocarbons, oil and gas, especially coal, but also things like titanium, iron, lithium, rare earths, all minerals that are highly sought after in the rush for the green transition, as well as for aerospace and defense.
Yeah, and they're so crucial in that green transition, of course, particularly for their role in batteries. And we know that that is at the centre of that big row between the US and China. And so Ukraine probably finds itself caught between the two in terms of who has access to it, because if you have access, you have power.
Well, that's right. I mean, we estimated back in 2022 that Ukraine had something in the order of $26 trillion worth of deposits.
Oh la la, oh la la. $26 trillion of what basically is new oil.
The big challenge, though, is not only are those not fully developed, but about 20 to 30% of those back in 2022 were in Russian-occupied areas. And so while Ukraine has an abundance of many of these kinds of minerals that are being sought after, especially, as you say, for electric vehicles as well as for defense systems, a lot of these aren't yet developed or are only partially developed. And that was an issue that was actually being addressed before the war started, but the Russian-Ukraine war actually slowed down the auctions that were being planned by the European Union at the time.
And so is it your assessment here that these minerals are being used as a bargaining chip in terms of whether the US will support either...
I mean, these minerals will be exploited at some point. By exploited, I mean they will fucking dig them up and they will fucking sell them. So the Americans are utilizing the crazy debt that the Ukrainians have accrued in order to seize on as much of these minerals as they potentially can. But they should have, relatively decent... obviously imperial and parasitic, but removing any morality from the conversation, relatively decent bargaining chip. At the current moment, though, very bad bargaining chip because they're not actually showing massive support for the Ukrainian cause. So, should have done that earlier or shouldn't have basically abandoned the Ukrainian cause.
Militarily or in terms of security guarantees. They're saying, look, give us access to these minerals, then you get our support, and without it, we won't. I mean, is that what it looks like right now?
Yeah, that is as well.
I would say this is a bit of a long shot for Ukraine. I mean, I think, first of all, there's definitely interest globally and has been interest in a variety of minerals in Ukraine for years. But right now, I think what Ukraine desperately seeks is more economic entanglement with the United States, especially in those areas that are occupied by Russia or those areas that are adjacent, as well as security guarantees so that there's a long-term investment from the United States in Ukraine. But it's going to take hundreds of billions of dollars of investment to really...
I love how we're calling basically stealing another country's resources, natural resources, as a long-term investment. The great switcheroo of the end of the colonial era is that it never ended. We just use private corporations to extract resources instead of boots on the ground.
Build an industry that's going to be one that the U.S. wants to preserve and protect. So I think Ukraine is really pushing hard right now with the United States to try to come up with some kind of arrangement that provides a satisfactory solution both for its domestic constituencies, but also security guarantees in the eventual ceasefire and peace deal that we're all hoping will be achieved at some point in the coming months or years.
Robert, it's good to talk to you. Thank you. We will talk about this again, I'm sure. But Robert Mugger there, thank you.
U.S. Secretary of State Marco Rubio is meeting his Russian counterpart Sergei Lavrov today in Saudi Arabia. Talks are aimed at setting up negotiations for a peace plan for Ukraine, without Kyiv or its European allies at the table. It's the first high-level meeting between the two countries since the start of Russia's full-scale invasion of its neighbor 3 years ago. A day earlier, European leaders held an emergency summit in Paris over the prospect of being excluded.
Funny part is when they were doing the summit, they were like, this is not an official summit. This is just like a chill meeting. Yo, bro, we're just doing a chill meeting, bro. Don't call this a summit, please.
From peace talks. Let's take a look at what the meeting between the U.S. and Russia is likely to accomplish in Riyadh.
U.S. Secretary of State Marco Rubio in the Saudi capital Riyadh, ahead of talks with his Russian counterpart. For Ukraine, the stakes couldn't be higher, but Ukraine won't be part of the talks. Events have moved fast in the past week. U.S.
Fucking cinema, bro.
President Donald Trump spoke to Russian President Vladimir Putin after years in which the U.S. froze Putin out for Russia's invasion of Ukraine. The U.S. made announcements ahead of negotiations that haven't even been scheduled yet about what a Ukraine peace deal might look like. U.S. Defense Secretary Pete Hegseth has said that NATO membership for Ukraine is unrealistic, as is a return to Ukraine's old borders, in line with key demands from Moscow. He's also said that European...
Трамп с его характером, с его настойчивостью, он наведет там порядок довольно быстро. И все они, вот увидите, это произойдет быстро, скоро. Все они встанут у ноги хозяина и будут нежно помахивать хвостиком. Все это встанет на свои места. Трамп с его характером.
Holy shit. Just kiss already. Fuck.
European and non-European forces should provide security guarantees, but that there would be no U.S. boots on the ground. The Trump administration has also indicated that sanctions relief for Russia is on the table. NATO allies of the U.S.
I mean, you know, I mean, he's correct. He is.
U.S. have scrambled to catch up, asserting that they...
By correct, obviously, I mean that, you know, the European Union cannot do jack shit. If the Americans pull the leash will be pulled and they will sit like proud little puppies. Unless they fully dedicate themselves to a U.S. exit, okay? Not a Brexit, not a Frexit, not a Polexit, but a U.S. exit. Which they won't do because half of the fucking ruling parties in Europe are basically fully or partially funded by the United States of America.
Two should take part in any peace talks. UK Prime Minister Sir Keir Starmer has said British troops could be part of a peacekeeping force. And Sweden says it would not rule out also sending troops to guarantee a ceasefire. Leaders have also discussed a peace plan provision that would see Ukraine gain instant NATO membership if Russia breaks a ceasefire. In all this, Ukraine and its President Volodymyr Zelensky have largely been sidelined, but Zelensky has said Ukraine would not abide by agreements made without its participation. Trump did send his Treasury Secretary to Ukraine to discuss U.S. access to Ukraine's rare earth minerals, suggesting that could be a way to pay back the U.S. for military support.
Yeah, that's not happening.
Meanwhile, the war rages on, the front line barely moving, as Ukraine tries to hold on to its territory, knowing that if Russia takes it, Ukraine may not get it back.
And we can now speak to Georg Löffelmann, who's a lecturer in US foreign policy at Queen Mary University in London. Welcome to DW. Thank you so much for your time. So as we've been saying, US and Russia, they're talking again after several years of silence. Can you tell us, are these talks about more than simply resolving the conflict in Ukraine?
Of course! And for the reasons that I said earlier. Jesus Christ, the repositioning of Russia as a neutral or even allied party against larger Chinese influence and the domestic appeasement of the American population by saying, look, we are ending wars. We are so fucking cool, bro. Look how cool we are. We're so nice. We're so nice and kind.
Is it more about the US and Russia essentially positioning themselves as, you know, these two global power brokers?
Yeah, I think that is exactly it. What we're having here is preliminary talks between the United States and Russia, establishing negotiating positions. And this is not just about the Russo-Ukrainian war. I think the larger picture that emerges here is that this is about the normalization of relations between the United States and Russia. There's already talk about a return of American energy companies to Russia, lifting of economic sanctions, but of course all of that hinges on ending the war in Ukraine. And what we have seen recently from statements by Pete Hegseth, the speech by Vance, the phone conversation by Trump with Putin.
Let's hear from the guys that are actually holding the fucking guns, okay? Not these fuckers in suits.
Far from politics, these Ukrainian soldiers are training near the front line. 3 years into the war, they're worried about a halt to US military support.
The consequences will be catastrophic. We will continue to lose. We are paying a heavy price today, and it will eventually be even higher.
The announcement of a possible peace negotiation with Russia has been a rude awakening for the soldiers, as if all their sacrifices had been for nothing.
I think it will be chaos. I think it will be chaos. I think the soldiers who are now fighting for our land won't listen to Zelensky.
You basically said,
We do not care.
There's a big potentiality of this. An unironic Ukrainian Hamas, even in the so-called occupied territories, will 100% pop up. Paramilitary organizations, etc., etc. Even domestic sabotage against whatever Ukrainian government accepts, ceding territories to Russia will also be actively sabotaged, both on the fields of general electoral politics, but also physically.
And we'll continue to push because this is our land. How can we just give it to someone just because they take it? I don't think it will work.
I don't want it, but I don't know. They are political. We are just a little people. What we can do? We're just fighting, that's it.
For now, they intend to continue the fight, even if in the end, the outcome of the war will be decided not on the ground, but several thousand kilometers away.
It's always like this. Fuck's sakes.
The United States seems ready to make substantial concessions here toward Russia.
So what is at stake here for the US and why the US seems so determined to push for negotiations when the conflict in Ukraine is still raging? Does that relate to what you just said? Essentially, it's about money and normalizing relations.
Yeah, I think what we've also seen here with the Munich Security Conference is a transformation, frankly, of the European security landscape. The United States wants to strategically reduce its footprint in Europe. They want to put responsibility for European security onto...
Listen, the main reason that the Americans could never negotiate with the Russians post 2010, 2012 is because they decided they're putting all their chips on the Europeans. They've invested crazy amounts of money both in NATO and in the European Union because they want an ally that they can rely on in a potential conflict, and outside of conflict in the conflict that never ends, and that is economic warfare between empire and the rest of the world, so that empire can stay on top. Now we see the movement of chips from that big blue European flag over to the potentially over to the red, blue, and white flag. It's a switch up. It doesn't make sense for long-term U.S. imperial interests. I don't think it does. But hey, let them self-sabotage, fucking bro.
The Europeans, and all of that, of course,
also now because they have borderline nothing to lose, bro. They have borderline nothing to lose because they've made Western Europe completely reliant on American oil and American allied oil and energy in general, not just oil. So even if they distance themselves from the Europeans back in the day had a choice between Russia and the US. Now they don't when it comes to energy supply. Now they will have none of that choice. And they will have just switched from the Russians to the Americans, and both of them will care very little for the Federation.
Has caught the Europeans,
the Union, apologies,
quite on the wrong footing. We are seeing quite panic diplomatic reactions here. And I think the larger picture here emerges is that we are moving into a world of great power diplomacy, less share.
You only see pogroms throughout timeline. What a nightmare. I see pogroms as well. Oh yeah, man. Ukraine is fucking ridiculously cooked. Ridiculously cooked. No matter what happens with the current negotiations, you will have even more massive privatization. You will have Western companies coming in there. You will have a borderline civil war scenario between the different branches and their level of belief in, European sovereignty inside of the country. You will have active paramilitary actions being executed in the occupied territories. It's gonna be, and this is not Chechnya, because in Chechnya they took over the entirety of Chechnya. Here they haven't, okay? Plus, now there is a massive fucking Ukrainian diaspora, which will be sending money back. Ukrainian diaspora, spread all over the world. This is unless in some sort of scenario the Americans keep them quote-unquote in check, which I don't think is possible. If you think that's possible, you don't really understand Ukrainians, I feel like.
Shared values and alliances and partnerships, how U.S. foreign policy has normally been conducted.
Mm-hmm. If we could go back, though,
because a lot of Western anti-American analysts tend to believe that Ukrainians are only fighting because they're getting picked up off the street, and there is no actual fervor amongst the general Ukrainian population against the Russian Federation. Bro, have you talked to Ukrainian recently? There very much so is. And while let's say motivation has fallen through because of how the situation is developing, that doesn't mean that they will simply lay down and take it.
To the talks about the conflict in Ukraine, Ukraine's President Zelensky has been very clear. He said he will never accept any decisions between the US and Russia without Ukraine's participation in talks. So can these talks be taken seriously as peace talks without Ukraine at the table?
I don't think they can be taken serious as really diplomatic solutions for this conflict. They will also have to be by.
Wrong answer. No, in a unipolar world, it only matters what only superpower decides. So no, diplomacy is whatever Americans say is diplomacy. A war crime is only what Americans say is a war crime. Peace is only what Americans say is peace. And the European Union waking up to this so fucking late is so fucking cocked.
Bilateral discussions between Russia and Ukraine, of course, but the problem is that Ukraine is so dependent militarily, financially on the United States that where the United States completely remove their support for Ukraine, it would be very difficult for Ukraine to sustain the war on their own or just with European support. This gives.
That's the point, you fucking what the fuck. That's the point. They are throwing Ukraine under the bus. Jesus Christ. How slow are these people? How slow are these people? How slow? Holy shit.
Gives the US a lot of leverage.
Mm-hmm. You talked earlier about this shift in transatlantic relations. Can you talk to us more?
Lol, remember the audience, bro. Yeah, I forget. They're not like my... They're not like my chat. Chat, is this the soundtrack that plays to your life?
More about the implications for Europe, for US-European relations, given that Europe has been sidelined here.
What the hell?
What do you think? Literally, this is playing in every single EU Council room right now.
They ask you how you are, you just have to say that you're fine when you're not really fine, but you just can't get into it because they would never understand.
FML, when you dedicate your whole career on saying America-based, we love America.
They ask you how you are, you just have to say that you're fine when you're not really fine, but you just can't get into it because they would never understand.
Yeah, I think this is, quite a worrying sign that Europeans...
The U.S. is normalizing relations with Russia and turning their focus on China. What will happen to Russia's relations to Iran, DPRK, etc.? Do you think they will maintain their relations or turn them against China? I think that there is little to no potential of actually turning Russia against China or their current allies. The long-term play is to make sure the Russians remain neutral in the event of... something happening. Okay, they want to basically Turkify Russia. Like they will let the Russians scream and ree about how it's super fucked up that China and Russia are entering a potential conflict, or that the Americans are fucking up Iran, etc., etc. The same way Turkey goes ree on Israel every time they commit another genocide, right? But then they don't do anything. They don't do anything to stop the genocide. So yes, my hot take is they just want to Turkify Russia and make it a neutral partner in which obviously the domestic billionaires of both countries prosper.
Are literally not at the table.
You think that Putin will go along with it? I've said it multiple times before. There has never been a position more favorable towards the Russian Federation when it comes to negotiating the end to this war and getting the most out of it as possible as a Trump administration in the current situation on the actual battleground in Ukraine than now, right? So yeah, like unless Putin's advisors and he himself are literal fucking orangutans, they should take the deal.
I think this also shows what kind of recognition.
Because otherwise, I would just ask.
Why are you running? Why are you running?
Europe has with the Trump administration. I mean, J.D. Vance recently with his speech almost presented Europe as an ideological enemy for supposedly cracking down on freedom, cracking down on the freedom of speech in Europe. And we are seeing the United States positioning itself, at least partially, even as, a rival to Europe. But then we also have...
Rival. Rivals need to, they need to be playing the same game, bro.
Voices like
rival. They're the cope. Oh, they are considering us a potential rival at the marketplace of ideas. And it's a guy talking to himself in a fucking alley, screaming at a billboard of I don't fucking know, Xi Jinping.
Kellogg, for example.
Debate me now, liberal.
Well, which are more conciliatory. So we
also your Dom Daddy a rival, bro. Oh, dude. I mean, when you suck America for so fucking long and then you want them to, and God forbid, respect you, even though you, then holy shit.
Have a very confusing picture of what does the Trump administration actually really want, how far are they willing to go to meet the Russians, to withdraw from Europe. So a lot is simply not known, but I think we are potentially gearing up for a summit between Putin and Trump on both the issue of European security and NATO and the Russo-Ukrainian war.
Georg Löffelmann from Queen Mary University in London. Georg, thank you so much for your time. We appreciate it.
Dude, I swear to God, if I had a piece of paper, I could teach any fucking political science course in this fucking planet if these guys, get fucking 150K fucking jobs in unis, dude.
Thank you.
U.S. Secretary of State Marco Rubio.
U.S. is being terrible to allied countries because Europe recently did a huge energy deal with Canada behind their back, so now U.S. is forcing them to pay for the war and trying to get their money back from Ukraine. Okay, that might have been one of the aspects of the reason, but maybe 5%. The wider picture is they just wanna be loved by the domestic population for having done something that can be very easily sold to the American wider populace as a win. That is number one, psychoanalysis of fucking Trump. And number two is because they are just geopolitically repositioning themselves to be closer to the Russian Federation and long-term goal of minimizing potential allies that the People's Republic of China can have. That's the analysis.
He is meeting his Russian counterpart, Sergei Lavrov, today in Saudi Arabia. Talks are aimed at...
But what the main point that I'm making is that it's fucking stupid and it's not the right strategy. Like, if I was in the American State Department, I would be cringing so fucking hard. Ukraine was fucking perfect. We make crazy amounts of money from selling them guns. It's their soldiers dying and fighting. It's slowly eroding long-term the Russian economy, destabilizing their state, and the only thing we need to pay is sending them money so they buy our guns. Same money that after we made profit on them buying our guns, we can go back and ask them to pay back. Like, holy shit, like, dude, you if I was a fucking demon, this would be a perfect situation.
Setting up negotiations for a peace plan for Ukraine without Kyiv or Europe at the table. It is the first high-level meeting between the US and Russia since the start of Russia's full-scale invasion of Ukraine.
US will not do a peacekeeping force. Yes, Russia won't withdraw from any territory, and a peacekeeping force without US will just be a EU occupation force. It will be massively unpopular and will never be accepted by Russia. I think it could be accepted by Russia. I think it could be. If they cede territory, it could be.
3 years ago.
Because this would not be like a new thing that has never happened in history. You have so-called peacekeeping troops on almost like every fucking conflict zone on the planet. You have even Russian peacekeeping troops in places like Armenia in its war against Azerbaijan, right? It wouldn't be that big of a twist, but... if they are promised that Ukraine is absolutely never entering NATO, blah, 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 they would potentially be okay with NATO troops being stationed on the border in order to be utilized as a security guarantee against the Russian Federation moving into Ukraine at a later date. I don't fucking know. That's at least what the international relations of my political science degree have taught me. But hey, never underestimate the Russian or the American government's ability to make a fucking stupid choice, which to reinstate would be dumb of the Russians to do. Peacekeeping forced by neutral states like India, maybe, but EU only, I just don't see it. Yeah, but if it's a neutral state, then the Ukrainians would absolutely, I mean, the Ukrainians are never going to agree on anything, but would agree even less likely on this sort of thing. And if it's a neutral peacekeeping force that is not a NATO, that will not be it will not be a tool that can be used to stop the Russians from changing their mind and reinvading. It has to be NATO troops. And the Americans will probably press on this. So Ukraine not in NATO, but NATO troops on the border. Since the entire legitimization of the invasion was demilitarization and stopping Western imperial expansion, yeah, they will not do any of that. They have failed. That's not ever happening. That is not ever happening. They can cope hard, but that's just not happening. Unless they want to fight for another 15 years. Not 15, but 10. So yeah, it would be like, because all the parties have to take some sort of L. And this would be the Russian L. They can respin it as, they've saved the Russian people of Eastern Ukraine from l'oppression. Then question, what's the difference between Ukrainian membership in NATO and NATO troops on the border that makes the former more acceptable to Russia? I mean, it would just be border guards pretty much, instead of, full-scale deployment of massive NATO detachments inside of Ukraine. And there would be no nukes potentially deployed in Ukraine, etc., etc. But in the long term, when it comes to, utilizing NATO membership as a tool to limit invasion, it would work the same way. It's a good question. But the difference will be very stark. I know
Wonderful, a
it's
new
just going
child
to suck
soldier,
for
I mean,
Kremlin to spin
subscriber.
this in a way that makes it a W for them. Potentially, but they have the Americans coming to them to negotiate. And holy shit, can that be spun really beautifully for the average Russian patriot, Pushzi. It can be... Poof. Thank you, Terkas! Thank you very much, Terkas. And if you want to be like Terkas and support this channel and avoid all ads because ads are quite literally fucking disgusting, do consider becoming a sub for $6 a month for free through Prime or by gifting to those less privileged than you. The ad plays in 2 minutes. Let us reach that beautiful 2,200. The only place on Twitch from a left perspective where we do realpolitik/geopolitics without me fucking reading all the time about how one side is fucking angelic and fucking perfect and the other side is a fucking literal spawn of Satan.
Meeting in Riyadh marked
Ad plays in 2 minutes.
an abrupt reversal of years of US efforts to isolate Russia internationally. Joining me now for more on this is DW's Riga bureau chief Yuri Reshetto. Yuri and his team report from Riga because DW was banned from reporting in Russia. So Yuri, these talks, they mark a very sudden end to Russia's international...
Does Russia Today operate in Germany? I hate running defense for fucking Russia Today of all things, but is Russia Today operating in Germany? Like, wrong fucking flex, sister. Oh. Probably no. No, of course not, dude. No, it doesn't. It doesn't. No.
Isolation. How much of a diplomatic coup is this seen as in Moscow?
Give Jesse a gift sub. Come on, oil me up, baby, oil me up.
Well, indeed, Anya, Putin is dominating the headlines at the moment. And yes, the most important headline is Russia, Kremlin, Putin himself are out of isolation. The Russian media are celebrating today's negotiations.
There you go. I told you. There is a way to fucking spin
Wonderful,
it. There you go, my friend. They're already spinning it in this particular way. The Americans came to us. There is no bigger, like... self-orientalizing Russian flex than here the Americans came to talk to us. They're always like, oh, America is irrelevant, fuck America, but they care so much about what America thinks. It's the extent to which American cultural imperialism fucking dominates everything is genuinely impressive. Thank you, Barry! Thank you, Barry, very much for the gift day. Thank you very much, God. Thank you very much, God.
And are happy to use them as, let's say, an opportunity to criticize the
If you try a hijab-styled face mask, you eat and drink easily and still hide your face, I can try it, but I think it would be exceptionally culturally insensitive if I showed up in here with a fucking hijab, bro.
at the same time. Also, they paid close attention to every detail as peace in Ukraine depended on it. For example, the ties of the participants were compared and analyzed. The state media agency RIA Novosti emphasized that Russian Foreign Minister Lavrov and US Secretary of State Rubio are wearing ties of the same color. Of course,
when you're underqualified for your job, they ask you for your opinion. You're like, yeah, it's like complex, like Putin is in the news all the time. They're like, some people are tweeting about how they're wearing the same tie. Give salary, please. Man, these talking heads, God. And I'm a talking head, and I'm making fun of talking heads. Isn't that fucking incredibly artistic twist of events?
These are absolute secondary issues, but you can see that the Russian media are eager to show as many points of common ground with Americans as possible and to say, hey.
Yeah, okay. That means they're already spreading the seeds of making the negotiations with the Americans and even potential Ukrainians acceptable for the domestic population.
Look here, we understand each other.
So who from Russia is there, apart from the foreign minister, Sergei?
Manufacturing consent, exactly.
Lavrov, who's taking part in these talks?
Yeah, Russia is represented at the talk by Lavrov. You said it, President Putin's...
Okay, we already heard. Is there an interview with Lavrov? I would love to see what Lavrov fucking says. Because they interviewed the Americans. Big talk update, but this is live. Wait, is this live?
Between Russia and USA. Well, I think that we cannot allow any torpedoing of our relations with the US. We have to actually resume them, get them back on track.
Holy shit. If you told me this a year ago, holy fuck.
Discussed absolutely not everything that separates us, but we did decide on an approach which was based on the telephone calls between our two presidents, and we felt the full determination on the part of our American colleagues to move forward as the presidents told them to, and we will be working on that. Thank you. Talks with
Jesus, did he talk for 3 hours? Man, the Americans talked for 15 minutes. This fucking yapper, bro. My boy is a yapper.
Так что разговор был, я считаю, очень полезный. Мы не просто слушали, но и слышали друг друга. И у меня есть основания полагать, что
Holy shit, Russo-American slobbing of the knobbing.
Американская сторона стала лучше понимать нашу позицию.
Dude, they are so signing a deal. They are so fucking signing a deal. 1 trillion, bajillion, million, farillion. Oh no, it's actually only, it's not that long. They're so signing a deal. They are so signing a deal. Chad, this is extremely fresh. Let's check it out.
Руководству Саудовской Аравии за предоставленную возможность провести встречу российских и американских представителей.
We thank the Saudis for allowing us to meet here and discuss with their representatives and the American representatives. Are you not going to give me subtitles? Why the fuck is the whole thing in Russian with no captions? Because English is not the only fucking language. Can I move it in this one? I think they repeat. I hate these fucking channels, bro.
Retaliated and
I guess Serbian is similar to Russian. Я говорю по-русски, товарищ. Понимаю все, но говорю очень плохо. I speak Russian, bro.
many other issues.
I speak many of the language.
And we agreed to look at all those questions in future meetings and to remove these barriers. And that goes also for other overseas institutions. And not get...
Okay, Lavrov is gonna fucking Lavrov yap. I don't know if you know about the Lavrov yap, but he talks like as if he's giving a PhD fucking lecture on state relations whenever he covers a particular thing. He is the opposite to you know who? Do you know who?
Of course you do. It's like my
Trump once
said, with great power comes great big booty bitches.
Do. Bad empanada, the opposite of Lavrov. Trump's foreign policy is nonsensical. Half military budget plus annex everything. It's incredible shit.
every other country, well, every other country, I mean, Russia and China, that is basically every other country, like to come to an agreement to lower their military budgets by 50%, all of them. Does he know that he needs the military to do imperialism? Did anyone tell him that? I told you guys that Trump would like accidentally bumble into doing really stupid things.
That was a really hot take, and it was a completely correct take, okay?
That destroy American power, and that would destroy it. Like, China doesn't need a big military. It doesn't do anything with it except for like act as a deterrent.
Russians love yapping in general. I don't think the Western audience realizes going to school in Russia is literally about learning to do mindless yapping about literature. Yeah, dude. For sure, bro. Like 100% on point.
Against the USA. It's literally the only reason why China has a military as large as the one that it has is because of the USA. So like this would be detrimental to American imperialism and better for China. But then again, like an agreement like this would just be broken. Like they'd break it. Someone would break it. The US or Russia would break it. I mean, Russia would never agree to it, for one, because Russia's in the middle of a fucking war right now. Obviously, they cannot afford to just.
What the fuck is he talking about?
Do that right now. But I would assume that this came about because Trump has been talking to Putin and probably like he brought this up, or like I don't know, one of the fucking.
What, everybody cutting the military? No, I think he's talking about cutting nuclear armaments. I think that's what he's talking about. I think he's talking about the Trump comment that he would like to see the world de-nuke.
Musk people brought it up, and then Trump's like, I'm an incredibly suggestive moron, and I just believe whatever the last person who I talked to believe. So I'm going to bring this up to Putin, and maybe Putin agreed to it or something. But I mean, Trump's peace deal for Ukraine will probably be like, give them half the country, and in exchange, Putin reduces the military budget by 50%. It was half. It wasn't 50%. It was cutting in half. So he wants.
Trump wants US, China, and Russia to cut military spending in half. Dude, that's fucking awesome.
So he wants all three to cut their military budget in half. Now, I don't trust the US to retain this for one. I mean, China would certainly try to do it and then renege on it if another party broke the agreement. But the US and Russia, they would never maintain something like this. Like, even if...
Motherfucker wants to be assassinated or some shit, bro. Comrade Trump indeed, dude.
Trump was committed to it. The second that like the Democrats got back into power, they would start building the military again. Like they would literally run. They would run.
You cannot like, yeah, that's the whole take, bro.
I am here for the Maoist revolution led by Comrade Donald Trump. By forcing Europe to sustain their own military, he is going to bring about an economic collapse in the land of the Occident. Long live Comrade Trump.
Absolutely.
On the fucking platform of Donald Trump destroyed our great grand military. Now we can't kill brown people as effectively. Vote me, Obama's son, and I will restore our military to its former glory. That's how they would run. That's what they do. Like
1,000,000%, dude. 1 million. I mean, they're already the Democrats have pivoted to the Republicans are undermining U.S. interests because on average they're more isolationist almost every fucking election, bro. I mean, Kamala literally rode the Trump is best friends with Putin, and that is a bad thing, Dick, for like half of her foreign policy pitches. The Dems love war, like Republicans love war more than anyone except the Democrats.
Like they run the platform of we can be more right wing than Trump.
Hugo, why are you ignoring chats? Because it's long, bro. Hey, Hugo, I have a friend who is very well read and committed ML, and she has been organizing for a decent amount of time. She says that the U.S. becoming completely fascist on its population and on the rest of the world is not going to be the decline of American empire, but will rather be the hard power reinforcement of the American empire and will make even more harder for us communists in the U.S. to do a revolution. What do you think of this this take? Yes, it will be harder for Americans to do a revolution in a more violent neoliberal state that the way a so-called fascist American state will look like. Yeah, absolutely. But that will not help America's position internationally because you do not really develop. So long term, yes, it would lead to collapse. I mean, it's always socialism or barbarism, dude. Now it's even socialism or extinction. Things have to get worse before they get better, blah, blah, blah.
This definitely came out of like him talking to Putin. I don't think something like this is realistic.
Sorry, Yankees, but you won't do a revolution. Yeah, I don't think anybody's hoping for America leading the world towards socialism. This would be true if Trump administration weren't literally breaking down American soft and hard power in front of our eyes. There you go. Thank you for answering the question, Chatter, and thank you for the question, Chatter.
At all. Obviously, the US and Russia would break this agreement, or they just would never really abide by its terms. Because the thing is, like, once you lower the budget, you know, you fire half the workforce, you get rid of like half the equipment, you stop maintaining it, you try to sell it off, and no one will buy it because there's no one to sell it to. You know, no one needs that much fucking military hardware. It becomes like exponentially more expensive to raise the budget again and replace everything that you got rid of. So it is like a huge commitment. And I seriously doubt that any of these countries are going to do such a thing while also just trusting like the word of the others to do the same. However,
Dude, they're just doing information overflow. This is just sentences coming out of their mouths. They're not doing this. But they are shooting themselves in the foot with a lot of other American institutions that are that belong to the extended arm of especially their intelligence agencies.
Googled this. Another thing popped up that This
is just so that, you know, some fucking grandmas under the fucking Bible Belt can read it and say that Trump is truly a peace candidate. Look at what he said about military spending. Also so that people can, like, send this fucking article to leftists that are screaming about military spending in the U.S. This way they can basically say, yo, Trump wanted to cut military spending and invite the rest of the world to cut military spending, but he was sabotaged, blah, blah, blah. He's actually a good guy, etc., etc., etc.
I didn't know about. Trump is proposing to occupy another country. It's not just Gaza, not just Greenland, not just Canada. Trump wants to fucking occupy Ukraine and take its minerals as part of the peace.
The claim America will never have a revolution is anti-dialectical and ahistorical. I didn't say it will never have a revolution. I just said that it is not extremely likely as of now. But hey, contradictions tend to roll like a fucking... tend to increase a little faster than COVID, so... You never know.
Peace deal with Russia. The Trump administration indicated US troops could be deployed to provide security in connection with the minerals if there's a peace deal with Russia. He wants to deploy American troops to occupy Ukraine. Oh, he's saying that he wants 50% of Ukraine's minerals to pay for American military aid, which I'm pretty sure doesn't make any sense because I don't think that aid was conditional on getting any return for it. So, like, you know, you can't just retroactively give aid and then say...
I mean, you can. But you need the other party to agree on it.
You have to pay us back for this by giving us half of your minerals. Trump just wants to occupy literally everything. Like, someone showed Trump a world map, and he just pointed at shit and said, me want. Like, this is never going to fucking happen. You have to be kidding me. What a fucking joke.
And the only thing that it does contribute to is losing your fucking soft power. Because everybody thinks you're insane. But America has a particular superpower that... no matter what they do, it still limits how much soft power they will lose. And that is that the entire world does not look at America as a constant, but a switcheroo between different administrations, okay? There's no such thing as the United States in the perspective of international diplomats. There's Trump's America, there's Obama's America, there's Biden's America, etc., etc. And while in the long term, there's not really a big difference, it is a coping mechanism for international diplomats to basically hope that the new administration is going to be radically different than the previous one. It's going to love us very much long time, right? Which is also stupid, because the fact that you can have a country that so radically changes its opinion on foreign policy from half a decade to half a decade, depending on the administration, should show you that they're not a fucking long-term partner that you can trust. And you should start removing yourself from them. The way, for example, the Europeans should if they had 2 fucking brain cells left after swallowing all that fucking American jizz. But hey, They've been gooned so fucking hard that I don't know they can.
This just shows like how much of a dumbass fucking blowhard Trump is. Like he's like, oh, I'm gonna occupy Greenland. I'm gonna invade, occupy Canada. I want to invade and annex Gaza. You know, I want 50% of Ukraine's minerals, and I'm gonna send the troops there to take them. This man is like, he's like a child playing a fucking Paradox video game at this point, but he's the president actually, and just keeps coming up with like increasingly insane scenarios for like American military occupations and annexations. Ukrainian officials have said Zelensky has long backed the idea of exchanging critical resources for continued US support. So, I mean, if that is the case, I don't think what Zelensky had in mind was American troops occupying the country and like the US government just being given 50% of all of its rare earth minerals.
Yeah, I don't know what the fucking Panada is talking about. He's like fucking misreading the article, but yeah, we talked about this earlier. It's just rehashing the same fucking shit. Let's watch the new Second Thought video. Sorry, that was an unk cough. Man, Twitter is so confused. It's so funny. What do you think, chat? What do you think, chat? What's gonna happen, huh? Wow, perfect pause, eh?
We're gonna lead the greatest economic comeback in American history.
It's been just under a month since Trump took office, and right now, everyone's wondering one of two things. What happens next, and how did we get here again?
Well, what happened last night?
What has happened to America?
I'm still trying to figure out what happened.
I love Americans.
Liberals clearly didn't see Trump coming back, and in the aftermath of his victory, while Democrats pinned the blame for their loss on leftists, pro-Palestinian protesters, Latinos, and anyone but themselves, one theme just kept showing up. And that's
the economy. The economy.
The economy.
The economy.
The economy. The economy.
The economy.
So, okay. The general consensus since the election is that if Trump won, it's because the economy was bad and the Democrats didn't listen. You can find this take everywhere from the Washington Post to the New York Times and on CBS, according to whom Trump's voters view the US economy as bad, while most Harris voters...
I agree. The economy is extremely important, and a Twitch streamer's economy is usually mostly made from advertising. Except here on YugopnikTwitch, where we fight an eternal jihad against advertising, and we want every single chatter to be subscribed so that they never have to watch an ad like the one that is about to play in exactly 1 minute and 10 seconds.
Wonderful.
So oil those less privileged than you so you can save them from the economy of Twitch and push them towards a path of true independence or become a sub yourself. Thank you very much, Cynical Chris. Be like Cynical Chris. And thank you, Baba Wilfred, as well. Be like Baba Wilfred indeed.
Voters view the economy as good, and their
economy good, ads bad. Vote for me, and nobody will ever have to watch ads, ever. Let's see if it works.
I'll boost your economy any day. Call me daddy.
Oh, and it's in a female voice! Traditionally defined as female voice. Thank you, Bill Borger, for the boost of the economy, baby.
Crazy hamburger! Crazy
hamburger! Let's fucking go! Thank you very much, Barry Balls. Let's fucking go. I want that 2,200, man. I want that ego from being over the number of 2,000, brother. No, for real. Fuck ads. This is fucking nice. Thank you, Vil. Thank you, Barry, dude. Let's fucking go, man. Every time I get fucking subbies, I feel...
Poll numbers show that the divide is a...
Thank you, Barry, brother. Thank you, Barry, brother.
...lot more dramatic than you might expect.
Mods, if you want to adjust the title to this video or something of the sort, please do. If you don't think it's smart, then don't. your call.
And look, it's not hard to see where this divide is coming from.
Red Note after JT vid, we need a hype train for Red Note, bro.
The Harris campaign pretty much ran on a line of everything is fine, trust us.
There are lots of signs that the
I am
American
so like my streaming method is so like Pavlov's dogged as fuck. It's Pavlov dogged as fuck. Like unless I hear the crazy hamburger type of shit, I literally like my energy levels go down. But then when I hear it, I feel like I'm in a casino and I just move the fucking thing and it's a ding 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 ding. You know, it's so strange.
American economy is
Basically, I'm a victim of bourgeois ideology as a Twitch streamer. Yeah, that's it. That's it. I'm not addicted to what amounts to gambling. No, I'm not. Trust me, I don't have a problem. I do not have a problem.
doing very well.
We now have historic low unemployment in America among all groups of people. We now have an economy.
Yes, but what about the economy?
That is thriving by all macroeconomic measures.
What is a macroeconomic? What does woman say? What would woman say? What the fuck, bruv?
Compare that to Trump.
We had the strongest economy in history. If Harris wins this election...
Not gonna lie, when I decided almost 10 years ago to avoid Twitter like a plague, has probably been the biggest positive decision of my life. Absolutely. If what I heard correctly, Elon is averaging 13 to 14 tweets per hour after getting in office. Dude, I do not open Twitter. I open it for like maybe 10 minutes every other day so that I can post a shit post and move on. Twitter is like 100% unusable. It is completely unfucking usable. It is also like not even a useful tool on any topic whatsoever. If you want to grow your platform on another website or whatever the fuck, it doesn't help you. Like nobody clicks on fucking links on that shit. It's completely useless platform. It's a completely useless platform.
Election, the result will be a...
Like don't go on Twitter. You gain nothing by going on Twitter. Please don't be on Twitter. Like pro tip.
2,000 years later.
Because later on you will be much happier.
Economic crash.
It's super vile, bro.
Wonderful.
I know a lot of you are struggling. I know a lot of you are worried about...
Been following since YouTube. Great show, buddy. Thank you, Source Code. I saw you very active in chat. Thank you very much for the 2 months, man. Always welcome to come and hang out. Thank you.
Paying the bills. It's
Thank you for the long-term support, buddy.
Gonna stop when Donald Trump brings back common sense to this country.
But who's right? Well,
and it's so easy. It's so easy to make Trump feel like loved and respected. He repeated, I think, at this point like 50 times that Vlad over from the Kremlin said, "Yes, I agree with your common sense revolution. It is very good saying. I also want to run country based on common sense." And immediately as he fucking said that, boom, she's wet, she's down. And I'm talking about Trump's crotch, bro.
Well, that depends. What is the economy? Is it inflation? Sure. Is it the number of new jobs? Maybe.
How about no?
Employment? Grocery?
How about no?
Store shortages?
How about no?
The stock market?
How about no?
Bruh.
The average hourly wage?
How about no?
All totally valid definitions of the economy.
Bruh.
And that means that, in a way, they were both right.
FBI, open up!
The thing about the economy is that it's pretty much just whatever you say it is. And that meant a lot of liberals were baffled that working class Trump voters couldn't see how well the economy was doing. We saw a lot of people condescendingly point out that wages on the low end rose faster under Biden and inflation was under control towards the end at a regular 2-ish%.
What the hell?
But maybe the most...
You put down the ADHD clicky board and find some bootleg Ritalin. No! I do not have a problem! I do not have a problem, Gabriel. Also, welcome back, Gabriel. I don't have a problem! I do not...
It's infuriating thing we've seen coming out of this post-election econ.
Thank you, Raw Chicken! Much love from the capital of Byzantine Empire. You go, hello, brother. From Constantinople, of course, brother.
snark, has been this idea that Biden left things better than when he came in, and people shouldn't be upset because America's been experiencing GDP growth way stronger than other.
Thank you, Luck Lesser, for the gift sub. Imagine if I turn my stream into be just like almost not saying anything and just like button reacting to things. Like I'm doing Marxist analysis through soundboard buttons. It would be very meta. It would be very like art. I can if I do that, and can I like start saying that I'm an artist when people ask what I do? I'm like, I'm an artist. Sam, remember like when Kanye showed up with that like literally a soundboard and he pressed 2 buttons 50 times and it was like, bro, that's fucking genius, bro. OG as fuck, original shit.
Other countries.
I've heard many of my
soundboards hypnotize me into gifting. Good. Large sounds when gift equals gift good.
Republican and Democratic friends say that China is on the rise. And America's falling behind. They've got it backwards.
This is what he actually hears in his brain.
Rum diddly dum dum, rum diddly dum dum, rum diddly dum.
America's rising. We have the best economy in the world.
We do not care.
And since I've come to office, our GDP is up, our trade deficit.
We do not care.
GDP. Our GDP.
Deficit of China is down to the lowest point in over a decade.
The thing is, though,
Istanbul was Constantinople, now it's Istanbul. Not Constantinople, been a long time gone. Constantinople, now it's Turkish delight on a moonlit night.
Barry, motherfucker.
Those at the bottom are still only making a punishing $28,000 a year, with a lot of states still way under the now mostly irrelevant $15 minimum wage we've been trying to get for over a decade. And yes, it's true that under Biden, inflation has stopped for a lot of goods, but those higher prices didn't disappear. There's a huge problem in the way we talk about the economy. Not only is it always a vague term, this one number, GDP, which has become a universal standard for how well an economy is doing, tells us absolutely nothing about how you and I actually live.
Yo, too much truth, bro. About to get killed.
Actually, it's worse than that. All this attention paid to the economy and macroeconomic indicators like GDP actively makes it seem like what's best for you and me just happens to coincide with what's best for Wall Street and your boss. And that's just not true. But we should back up for a second.
You go react harder. I am with the buttons, bro. Yes, this counts as art. It does, doesn't it?
Hey everyone, just wanted to stop by and offer a quick thank you to all of our Patreon supporters. We really could not do this channel without you. So big thank you to you guys. If you'd like to support the channel and you're not yet a Patreon member, you can check it out at patreon.com/secondthought, where we've got some excellent perks for you guys, including access to our Discord server, where we have a book club and a dedicated educator role ready to answer any questions you might have about socialism. All right, on to the video. The first thing you need to know is that the idea of the economy is only a...
Is the bisexual lighting? I can't focus on Daddy JT without it. We have outgrown the bisexual lighting. Now it's all about soundboards. You're gonna make the voices in my head, meme sounds in my head. Oh, it hurt. Oh my god, cutie. You go long time listener, first time chatter. Your stream reminds me of a Johnny Test episode. This is not usually how it goes, but hey, let's try.
100 years old. It's only in the 1930s, in this book, that we first get the word economy showing up the way we mean it now. The word itself is much older, of course. It comes from the ancient Greeks. But it's Keynes who first theorized the economy as this complicated network of monetary transactions we understand it as now. He is the guy to thank/blame for the fact that we all intuitively imagine a separate thing from politics and society that we call the economy, that is, in theory, the sum of all the moments at which money changes hands.
or the idea that you can simply manage the economy of any particular system into a form which will satisfy the needs and interests of the entirety of the population. The introduction of economic thinking long-term is an ideological moment, which long-term implies that even a slave society could have been optimized in a way for the slaves to suffer a minimum amount of oppression compared to what slaves in a society that is less optimized would suffer. It does not question suffering. It does not question exploitation. It simply attempts to minimize it. It removes itself from dialectical thinking de facto, at least the neoliberal idea of economics, and believes that you can build a house from shit. Well, the rest of us are like, bro, maybe don't play with shit. Yo.
Keynes's General Theory was a truly transformative book for economics and politics. But his ideas would have been immediately forgotten if there was no way to make them useful. And to do that, you needed a way to measure this economy he was talking about. Enter GDP, or as it was called back then, GNP, the Gross National Product. It's a metric invented,
or as Biden would say, GPT?
By these guys that
optimizing suffering by making sure more suffering equals to even more profit for the elites. Yeah, that's how the system does it. But some well-intentioned economists that think that the question of suffering is the lack of proper organization only get half of the point, because they deem the walls of particular economic systems as natural and unmovable.
Wonderful. A new child
So the
soldier.
full
subscriber.
extent, the extent to which they can envision a better world is always unscientific and limited, as it only operates inside of the boundaries of whatever system is currently in place. So yes, like they do not play the game of removing suffering, but trying to limit it, which is like, I don't know, telling a domestic abuse victim, because domestic abuse victims are always my examples for some reason, to, I don't know, take a pillow, like put pillows under their dress, because when they get beat up every night, it's going to hurt less. You know? Maybe the problem is the getting beaten up every night part, not the minimize how much it hurts part. I don't know. I might be a fucking utopianist here. Thank you, Flaco Bell, brother. Plug the fuck up, baby. Thank you, bro. Thank you very much. And thank you, Gabriel. You know the worst thing? People think that Keynesian redistribution is socialism. Yeah, it's my favorite. That one's by far my favorite. Is it better? Now Lib Hugo is going to enter the chat. Then not trying to optimize a capitalist economy? Of course it is. But long term, ironically, it might even harm the movement more than it can help it. Companies are like domestic abusers, but we keep going back because we need to survive, and or we're consumer whores. I love being a consumer whore, but yeah, it gets taken advantage of. Beautifully put. Beautifully put.
tries to measure the final value of all the goods and services in a country. It's a bit more complicated than that, but that's the point of the rest of the video, so, you know, chill out. But when we hear people talk about the economy, capital T, capital E, doing well, usually they mean that GDP is going up.
Yeah, it's like words like well, words like good, words like etc., that are so vague. Even unfortunately, words like democracy, democracy. are non-material thinking. That is why liberalism is flawed, because it operates with tools that redefine themselves the way air redefines itself when it enters a room.
In fact, getting this number to go up is the explicit mission of a lot of government projects, and if anything is expected to make the number go down, you can be pretty confident it won't make it past.
I'll leave you with my boy. I'll be right back. I need to piss.
Congress. The EU, for example, both in 1997 and 2012, made it so that all the member countries are constitutionally forced to respect specific ratios between their GDP and their public deficit and sovereign debt. Likewise, in the US, tax cuts, like those we saw under Bush, were brought in on the justification that they'd increase GDP. And on the Department of Commerce's website, the government is explicit about how important this number is for all sorts of policies and departments. GDP growth is king when it comes to the economy. But there's a lot wrong with chasing GDP growth. For one thing, and stay with me here, growth isn't real. Remember the 1930s? If any of you actually do remember the 1930s, I will be very impressed.
Banks by the hundreds, by the thousands are forced to close. The whole financial system quakes and totters.
Right as Keynes and Kuznets were developing the economy and GDP, two important things were happening. One, the US had just gone through the brutal Great Depression, and the New Deal was kicking in to fix the mess. Two, oil was discovered in East Texas and Iraq, becoming this magic resource that seemed to deliver tons of new, seemingly limitless energy. On the New Deal side, the government needed a way to track what was going on in society, all these inputs and outputs, to predict what the impact of all its new policies were going to be on the suddenly very visible issues of unemployment and future tax revenue. On the oil side, new oil fields were being discovered at such an insane pace that, right as tracking economic indicators became important, it stopped making sense to track the possibility of the things that fueled growth ever running out. With how much was being found, it just sort of seemed like you could consume oil infinitely and, for the most part, ignore how much it might cost to replace it. And this mattered because oil did so much.
I mean, I know. That is why I call upon all the Oilers in chat to help their fellow chatters to avoid the ensuing adpocalypse at exactly 3 minutes and 20 seconds. More oil, less ads. Better, safer planet.
It's so saturated with oil that you can literally wring it out with your finger.
There you go. Look, pictures of Oilers in chat. Look, little videos of, yo, Oilers, this you?
Not only was oil powering American cars and all the infrastructure built around them, the mid-20th century fossil boom gave us plastics, which you could use to make pretty
no ads
much anything, and synthetic fertilizers, which pretty much meant unlimited food. Basically, this one thing, oil, had solved government in the immediate aftermath of the greatest economic tragedy the country had seen.
With their gushing oil wells and super hotels and count up their money all day.
The numbers kept growing thanks to this magical liquid, which had negligible assumed costs, and they could keep growing forever because it seemed like there was always more waiting to be found. Coal had reached its peak, there was no more west to expand on. But thanks to oil, you could reasonably claim that things were just getting better for everyone because oil killed the idea that humans had to compromise with natural limits. Not in energy, not in food, not in stuff. And to back it up, you now had a number that grew—
well, that aged gracefully, am I right?
every year.
What up, young blood? What up, cuz?
Year, and was expected to keep growing forever, calculating how much better off everyone was from the year before. So why is growth not real then? Beyond just the fantasy of limitless energy, GDP is a static measure. It's like taking a picture of everything that people are spending money on at a moment in time and calculating how much it's worth. To get growth, you need something to compare that picture to. Another picture, taken later. Take your apartment, for example. Every year, your landlord hikes rent a couple %. Your apartment hasn't changed. It hasn't gotten that, let's say, 5% better.
But in a world without plastics, that what would we make our dildos from? Checkmate, Pinko.
But now it costs more. Thanks to that, the picture from last year and the picture from right now look different.
You would not need a dildo, for everyone would be having sex with everyone. Indeed. Damn.
Call that growth. Same story, for example, if you got slapped with a medical bill you can't afford. The debt you take out to pay it back, that's growth too. GDP went up, so now everyone gets to pat themselves on the back because, look, the economy is thriving. There is no possible...
Holy shit, if you use a plastic dildo, do you get microplastics?
Other way to interpret that. See, the way GDP works assumes that any increase in how much money people spend can be interpreted...
With my dildo, it's macroplastics.
as an improvement. In order to imagine that, you need to delude yourself into thinking that people only spend money on things they want to, have total freedom to pay the price they think is fair for the things they buy, and that anything of value can or should be able to be bought. And if your goal is to make that GDP number grow, you need to delude yourself even further into thinking there is no limit to this, that the oil will never run out, that the forests will never be gone, and that there will always be more people ready to slave away and produce more shareholder value. Because cutting a tree down to sell the wood makes the number go up, but growing a tree doesn't. The problem is that none of those assumptions hold. Under capitalism, the price of something has nothing to do with how much it's worth to you, and everything to do with how much you can be made to pay for it. Like, okay, think of it like this. I love taking walks after lunch. It doesn't cost me anything, and it would make a lot more economic sense if somebody charged me every time I wanted to. But until my shoes are paywalled and the park installs a turnstile, that daily improvement in the quality of my life isn't going to show up anywhere in any economist's GDP calculation. And it shouldn't. But that's a matter of opinion.
But we built parks because parks nice. Up until a moment when everything needs to be privatized. And I'm like, why do you even need a park? Look, you have parking lots. Parking lots is basically the same. Stop complaining, you liberal cuck.
When Kuznets developed GNP, it brought up a lot of difficult questions just like that. Questions like, should casino revenues be included in the total?
Yes.
The answer was yes, by the way. That's a business making the economy grow.
And making all of us successful family men.
Obviously. So, should we all...
Jesus Christ. This anti-gambling propaganda. Just one spin away from solving all of your life's problems. Don't you fucking know that? Jesus Christ, man.
Also include the money made from illegal gambling? Well, no, it's illegal. Obviously that shouldn't count, right? What about advertising? What about stock trading? What about the military? Kuznets was adamant that military spending was, quote, at best a necessary evil, but still an evil. It was a cost, and he strongly believed that it shouldn't be counted on the side of growth. But that wasn't too popular of an idea for the US.
One, incredibly fucking fascist hot take, but if there's one industry that's existed throughout there's one industry that has existed since humans organized in societies, it's been dudes with weapons. So it's arguably the old... You know, people like to say that sex work is the oldest job. I like to call it the second oldest job. You know what the oldest job in the world is? Killing people.
Government, increasingly infiltrated by the defense industry and getting ready to launch into World War II and spend a lot more on guns. If military spending was counted against GDP growth, that could be a reason to limit it and to really consider all the different costs of this technology we've developed to vaporize people around the world. But if it was just another thing making the economy grow, which at that point we all agree is what's best for everyone, why would we ever deprive...
What murder? The mook was in my game. Also, I have no idea what mook means. I hope that's not a racial slur.
Of ourselves of
because it kind of sounds like
around the world. But if it was just another thing making the economy grow, which at that point we all agree is what's best for everyone, why would we ever deprive ourselves of obliterating a couple million brown kids who don't even live here? Or take healthcare for a second. Cuba's healthcare system delivers identical, if not better results than what we have in the US on all sorts of key indicators. Cuba has a lower child mortality rate, similar life expectancy, and is regularly able to send doctors abroad to help with epidemics and crises, all within the context of a 60-year American embargo that every country in the world except the US and Israel has voted to end, multiple times. Cuba's healthcare system is not organized like it is here. It costs way less to achieve similar and often even better results. But because all this costs less, Cuban GDP suffers. Expensive and inefficient counts as growth for the US, cheap and effective counts against Cuba. So, why care? Why does everyone seem to use GDP if it's such a flawed measure? Well, for a while, they didn't. The Soviet Union, for example, used what it called the material product system that relied more heavily on the physical quantity of goods. Other countries, though, were often forced to adopt GDP through the IMF and World Bank, who set growth targets in GDP terms in exchange for access to loans and international goods. So eventually, GDP is what almost everyone started using. GDP, mind you. What Kuznets originally developed was
Okay, let's see if I said a slur in 4K. Mook, moke. Mook is a slang term for a person of low social status. Oh my god, I'm a mook. Especially a contemptible one. Chat, we're all mooks, bro. A fool or stupid person. I'm definitely a fucking mook. Mook is often confused with moke, a racial slur. Okay, oh my god, that was close. Shit. Fuck. And therefore should be used with care, if at all. The word's history, however, takes us on a journey that includes Tennyson's opinion okay. So yeah, be careful. Be careful, chat. Okay? Well, oh shit, I said it! Fuck! Okay, fucking idiot. I'm sorry, Juro. Yeah, fuck. Genuinely my bad.
The NP, the gross national product. The metric everyone uses
2 strikes. Yeah, it's my second strike. It's not the first time.
Now is the gross domestic product. That's because GNP is calculated by following the nationals of a given country, regardless of where they are.
You said it for educational purposes.
GDP is explicitly territorial. Part of the reason behind the change from GNP to GDP that happened in the 1990s, right as everyone is turning on their economic calculators, is that it effectively hid how dramatically exploitative globalization was for some countries. Instead of following where the profits ended up, usually in the hands of Western CEOs and shareholders, a lot of countries seemed like they were suddenly developing and growing at a crazy rate, even though they weren't the ones keeping the money, because GDP focuses on where the money is made.
Yeah.
Not who gets it.
But incredibly good point.
But more than any of these other reasons, though.
Also, even if we exclude that, GDP is calculated on who ends up reaping the profits, right? So when you outsource a particular business, like the labor force that produces a particular, in the case of capitalism, commodities, for example, over in, let's say, Sri Lanka, people are working really hard for an American company in Sri Lanka. And they produce something that is then assembled or just shipped to the United States, and then they sell it from the United States. In the United States, they're getting a crazy GDP boost because they are the ones at kind of the end of the line, that are selling the iPhone, the jacket, the table for $100, $1,000, $7,000, etc., etc. While the country that produced the commodity does not get a GDP boost of the same level because their labor force is underpaid. Very often they don't even count it in their GDP domestically. So it's massive disbalance, even if you exclude the conversation about how, this is only about the profit rate, not actually what local people get, because obviously the majority of the profit is siphoned to the owners.
So, the staying power of GDP comes from the way it lies about politics. It makes politics seem like we're all in this together, and all we need is a good technocrat who will run the economy like a...
Vein of watching a friend of the show, Hakim released a new video today. Is it the French one? He told me yesterday he's releasing a French one. France, the most evil empire to ever exist. Holy shit. I mean, we're watching that next, I guess. Holy fuck. Or no, I'm putting it on the list. We have another one, and then we'll watch Hakim's. Let me put it. The deprogram content industrial complex is truly an impressive feat of humanity.
Business and make it grow. If growth is an objective goal that we can measure empirically, we just need to find the perfect levers to pull, and that way we automatically squash any debate with an objective answer. So if people believe that growth is good no matter what...
Also putting, like, for example, SOTSDEM hats on. We need to calculate cost in a different way. The way we calculate cost right now is how much it costs to produce a particular thing, right? And that's how we define the profit rate. How much it costs to produce a thing and how much we've made from selling it in cost that includes labor costs, right? That is how profitable it is. But it's only currency, only capital exchange. On a world with finite resources, one should also maybe, I don't know, calculate the impact on the environment, the impact on the domestic community, etc., etc. There are many more units of measure that need to be applied on whether a particular thing is profitable. This is with the SOTSDEM hat on. And with the non-SOTSDEM hat on, like, profit is excluded from the whole thing. That does not mean one should not calculate the previously mentioned units when determining the feasibility of a potential enterprise's functioning. AKA when determining if it's worth to pursue a particular production line.
Words of the Federal Reserve System Governor Henry Wallach, then quote, "Growth is a substitute for equality of income, so long as there is..."
There you go. Sometimes I can teach you something instead of just constantly spamming.
Growth, there is hope, and that makes large income differentials tolerable. If you can sell people on the idea that growth benefits everyone, even though it doesn't, you can kill class politics. All GDP is a measure of prices, the prices of commodified goods and services. Growth is only ever an increase in commodification and commodity production. Like, if we made iPhones with batteries that could last twice as long, GDP would go down. If we took healthcare and education and made them public services, affordable and universal, GDP would go down. If you were less exploited by your boss, GDP would go down. Your life would be better even if the economy stopped growing. But when all these different politicians use the economy as a shortcut to get your vote, telling you how much growth they've achieved or they're going to bring, you can be confident that it isn't...
I think I successfully made my dad class conscious. That's sick, pandas. Fuck yeah. Good for you.
Your approval that they're after. They want growth because all growth...
Daddy issues. Leave the chat.
...means is more of your life being decided by someone else's profit. It's more turnstiles at the park, more iPhones in the landfill, more oil being extracted. It's a 100-year-old lie based on myths we've long debunked, and neither party is interested in being honest about it.
Great shit. Great shit. So how can we properly argue these points? Obviously, JT is incredible at arguing them, especially at baby leftists. But let's see a new rising star of digital communist agitation, Harper O'Connor. Harper O'Connor will watch Jubilee, obviously the high point of content, where I believe capitalists argue socialists. The video is titled "The Key to Persuasion as a Leftist." Let's try and learn something from Harper, and I will learn with you as a hypercritical king of advertising, which also includes agitation and propaganda.
wanted to make your point, so let me make it back.
Hannah,
and then you're going to try to say it's too spicy for me. No, I got you. Like, let me respond to you. It is not capitalism coming in and enshrining enslavement. And in fact, capitalism...
How about new?
...is what got rid of it and started pushing...
How about new?
...back against the central...
Sure, capitalism better than feudalism doesn't mean... Maybe understanding that a system changing from the previous mode of production into a newer one, or at least replicating it in less oppressive forms, should imply that we can do the same thing to the current system and change it for a better one. I love this argument. I love the capitalism based because it's not as fucked up as having a king. But then when you say, okay, we thought having a king was a super chill shit until we changed the system, and now we have a chiller shit. Arguable, of course. How about we find something that's more chill than the current thing that we have? And they're like, no, that's impossible because they've naturalized capitalism.
...centuries old, awful institutions. So to say it's capitalism, I think it's honestly offensive.
Oh boy. Hi. If you're critical of capitalism, chances are you've had a lot of brain-dead arguments just like this one. These discussions can be super frustrating because you'll...
Does Jubilee not seem like a tool to launder far-right beliefs to a generally progressive liberal audience to anyone else? It does to me. At this point, it's genuinely turned into it. And I think they have a video coming out with a literal Nazi arguing with people who are not Nazis.
You'll encounter the same...
Wait, maybe it's come out. Because I heard it's coming soon.
But when a
one conservative, 25, real, an Ivy League student, African or African American, should we serve their husband? No, it's not out yet. It's not out yet. There's a lady like that participated in this without knowing that she participated in this, posted on TikTok, and I saw it. She was like, dude, they didn't even tell us that we would be talking to a white supremacist. And then all of a sudden we were talking to a white supremacist, which they ended up platforming. And the whole conversation was basically him screaming fucking a great replacement propaganda. That like it's difficult to argue with someone that says that they're making the frogs gay. Like what's the counter argument to somebody saying that they're making the frogs gay?
Talking points again and again. But it can seem like no matter how strong your argument is or how good your evidence is, it's like talking to a brick wall. The harsh reality is most leftists are nowhere near as persuasive as they could be because they spend so much time thinking but almost no time communicating. The good news is persuasion is a skill, and anyone can learn it. I studied rhetoric and debated competitively for 4 years while also building an audience of over 100,000 followers, so I should know. So today, because I want to help you develop your persuasive powers, we're going to break down this Jubilee video right here and see what it can teach us about crafting messages that actually reach people. One quick note, I'm not really here to fact check or add my own commentary. Other people have done that sort of thing already. All I want to do is give you the skills to win over as many people as possible. If that's what you're looking for, then great. Let's get into it.
America would be a more powerful country under communism.
Oh, what does powerful mean? Ah!
I think one of the main misconceptions about
what does powerful mean?
Communism is
love these questions.
That it's just making everybody equally poor. When Marx and Engels wrote repeatedly that the first step under communism is increasing the productive forces.
This is key. If you want people to appreciate what you have to say rather than tuning you out, then you have to fix this one mistake. It's very simple, but I see so many leftists make it. Go easy on the jargon. What Eddie said here is not that bad. I think most people can assume what productive forces mean in this context, but there's a chance that they don't, and that's not a risk that we want to take. Think about it this way. For someone to agree with what you're saying, they have to understand what you're saying first. Pretty simple, right? Which means priority number one is always making sure that the other person knows what you're trying to communicate. It's not to drop jargon, it's not to feel smart. If that's your goal, this probably isn't the channel for you. But if you want to learn to communicate 10 times better, you just have to drop your ego and laser focus on one question. How can I communicate this in the simplest way possible. Keep in mind, most people have genuinely not read a single book since school. And I practice what I preach on this. If you put my video scripts into an app that measured how complicated the words are, you'd realize that I actually speak at about an 8th grade level. And it's not because I think you're stupid. It's because I care about communicating effectively. And I don't need big words to do that. So that's the first reason that you need to avoid jargon. If people can't understand you, it's game over. But there's actually a second reason why you may not be connecting with people, and this one goes way deeper. It's because jargon marks you as an outsider. What I mean is, we all have
someone who knows what alcohol means, but does not know what the word ethanol means, and you tell them you enjoy consuming ethanol, they will think that you are doing something like heroin. Okay? De-jargonize as much as possible. This is a fucking given.
The set of words that we use every day. Of course, it's different for each person. A young lady working as an accountant in Cincinnati will speak much...
Holy shit, I know this guy. You know this guy? Seems like a chill guy.
Differently than a middle-aged welder living in Georgia. But I think we can both agree, for most people, phrases like bourgeois, alienation, and productive forces are not familiar. So when you use weird phrases like this, people may understand you still, but they're automatically going to trust you less because they're going to realize you're not like them. Now, if this sounds like how a caveman would think, you're right, it totally is. You need to understand this.
Curate your approach depending on the audience, yes.
People are not totally rational. I'm not saying you need to manipulate them or that you can't appeal to their logic. What I am saying is nobody thinks like a philosopher all the time. Everyone is biased. So don't play with one hand tied behind your back by using phrases that make you seem like a weirdo. It's very simple. By the way, no hate to the people in this video. It's very hard to communicate effectively in a high pressure situation like this. Everyone in this video did a fine job. It's very easy for me to criticize them from the sidelines, but that's not my intention. If I seem critical, it's just because I'm using this conversation to highlight some of the common pitfalls that I see in interpersonal communication, especially when it relates to politics and political persuasion.
So why did I come to communism? When I actually read it, when I went from Marx to Lenin to Mao to Deng to Fred Hampton, I started realizing like, oh, this is patriotism. This is the idea that I look at another American and think to myself, I want you to be fed. I want you to feel fulfilled in your life. I want you to feel like you actually have control within your society.
That was genius. If you want to win people over, you need to understand what he
redefine what patriotism is in the conversation and introduce ideas of patriotism that nobody that is trying to debate you would counter-argue, because they would be the one that looks absolutely insane if they tell you, it's not patriotic to want your fellow American to do well, right? It's not patriotic to want your fellow American to have a decent life standard. It's not patriotic to want your fellow American to have, to receive the full value of what they're working for, etc., etc.
He just did. And I'm not just talking about the way he speaks. Obviously, he's a great communicator. The deeper concept at play here is called frame control. Here's how it works. Basically, frame control means linking an idea to a deeper idea. The right is very good about this. When they talk about immigration, they always link it to crime. So if you care about law and order, if you want your country to be safe, you'll be anti-immigration. When they talk to young men, they try to link being left-wing to being weak. So if you're a young man and you care about being masculine, you'll be a conservative. And in this case, when they talk about economics, they try to link capitalism to the strength of the country. So if you're patriotic, you'll support capitalism. And way too often, left-wing people fall into the trap of addressing the argument without addressing the underlying fear. Because the truth is, it was never about immigration or culture war or economics. These issues have been tacked on to a primal desire to feel safe, to feel accepted as a man, to feel secure and prosperous. Fear, desire, safety, belonging, these are old emotions. Lefties don't like to acknowledge this because we'd prefer to live in a world where everybody's perfectly rational. It makes us uncomfortable to stir up these animal spirits, but I can promise you our enemies are quite willing to tap into people's deep, unspoken desires. And they've gotten very good at it. So again, we see a conflict at the logical level, but subconsciously, at the emotional level, there are much more powerful forces at play. I'm not saying you should push people's buttons. I'm not saying that you shouldn't ground your opinions in research. As a matter of fact, I just put out a reading list for beginner leftists who are looking to get more educated. I'll link that below. No, what I am saying is you need to ground your appeal in forces and emotions that people can understand in their gut. So to bring it back to the footage at hand, Eddie and Malumbo are using the language of stability, of security, of patriotism even, to advocate for their point of view. You can use these appeals in an authentic way. You don't have to surrender this frame to the right.
Disagreeers are walking quick on this one. Can I say something first on this one to be so bold? There's not a mass immigration into Venezuela, into China, into Russia. Where do people want to go? Switzerland, America, Sweden.
So here's one thing that will instantly level up your communication ability. Identifying
He did the Vuvuzela iPhone immediately. Fucking never change, please.
assumptions. This clip is a great example of that. Ty is saying people want to come to Western countries. What he's not saying is because they're capitalist. That part is implicit. But think about that for just 1 second. Most of the people who are crossing the border, unauthorized immigrants, are from Mexico, which is, last I checked, also a capitalist country. So when we consider this fact, we realize that obviously people aren't coming to the US because it's capitalist. They're coming to the US because it's rich. So as you interact with people, you need to listen not just to the text of what they're saying, but also the subtext. Because if you catch this, you can make the implicit explicit. And then you're having a deeper conversation. So how do we do that? Head-on approaches do not work well in these situations, at least in my opinion. I actually think that asking questions is the best way to get people to state the unstated. So in this case, you could ask, well, why do you think people are coming over? Aren't people coming in large numbers from Mexico or other capitalist countries? So now you're talking about why some countries are poor and why some countries are rich, and that opens up the door to a discussion of imperialism. So the conversation has been broadened. By the way, this tactic is only going to work if it comes from an authentic place of genuinely wanting to understand their perspective. People can sniff out inauthenticity from a mile away. Real vulnerability is the key to impact.
People from the destroyed and exploited countries want to go to the exploitative bully. No one is shocked, everyone is sad. And that is a completely correct take. But this is not the way you should respond to this sort of conversation. Because you are already introducing presuppositions to them that they know nothing about. And that will simply derail the conversation into herder is America exploiting the developing world, which then warrants a 5-hour conversation in general. You can quite literally skip that through what he introduces. You basically take his premise, which is an implied premise, and you question what is being implied. And that is that people are coming to America because it is capitalist, not because of many other reasons, which you now do not even have to imply because they're implied. It moves the, the turn in the D&D game over to him to roll the dice. Right?
Impactful conversation. Not facts, not figures, not logic. All of that comes later.
When we look at countries like Cuba and China, I think it's more important to judge them based on what they had before the revolution. Before Cuba had a revolution, nobody had access to healthcare. They were working on slave plantations that were dominated by Western multinational corporations. China before the revolution, yes, there were famines during the era of Mao. There were far more famines before Mao came to power and before China was able to industrialize and get to the point today where they're now one of the most powerful countries on earth. In the 1950s, the U.S. was already industrialized. China had to do that. They were a semi-feudal country.
You see, well, all of this is completely correct. These are already like complex talking points that usually the, let's call it politically illiterate, to be rude, people in front of you will not know. So they'll immediately jump on the famine bandwagon. They'll immediately jump on the authoritarian 1984 bandwagon, etc., etc. Never reply to what, at the end of the day, is a false presupposition, which was his. Capitalism good because people are migrating to this country. When it's a false presupposition, when you see that somebody is basically trapping you, question the trap. You question the trap. You kill the trap first.
in extreme poverty. And in just 70 plus years, they've become this economic superpower.
Another great example of frame control. Again, you just want to expand the conversation whenever possible. So in this case, Eddie's pointing out how the way that we talk about these countries doesn't really make sense. And so rather than comparing socialist nations to rich capitalist countries like the US, we should be comparing them to other countries at comparable levels of development.
I love that one. There I agree. When, for example, if somebody comes to you and he is re-China bad because socialism, they would be much better if no Communist Party in control, whatever you think about China. If you're trying to pitch socialism to them, you can quite literally say, okay, you have a relatively similar country that did not have socialism. It's called India. What are the life standards in India? What are the life standards in China, motherfucker? Okay. What is the level of industrialization in India? What is the level of industrialization in China? What is China's power level on the geopolitical playing field? What is India's? Etc., etc. Ball in their field, ball in their field, ball in their field, ball in their field. If they use, I don't know, Le Cambodia was communist herder, etc., etc. Don't even try to argue that shit, which are, misinterpretation. They were never communist, blah, blah, blah. That's probably not going to work. Just tell them, yo, bro, like then if free market equals capitalism, as the chatter said, what about Ethiopia? Okay, if we're going to use extreme cases of the manifestation of a particular ideology or system of organization in a country, if we're going to pick the worst representative of my thing, let's pick the worst representative of your thing.
Or we should be actually tracking before and after the revolution, right? That makes a little bit more sense.
Whenever anybody says, what about Venezuela, I suggest saying, what about the Congo? The conversation immediately ends.
He's just kind of adding some nuance to the conversation, and that can help people.
And if they're relatively smart, they're going to talk about, systems of governance, corruption, etc., etc. And that's why the Congo is the Congo. Well, you can throw it right back at them that the same way a capitalist state can be flawed in the manner through which it manufactures capitalism domestically, aka just how capitalist it is in your eyes. The same problems can be applied to any other socialist, to any other system, including a socialist experiment.
Think past some of the narrative frames that they probably just use without thinking about it. By the way, this isn't like
without thinking about it. I genuinely believe that ads are bad and you should not watch ads. Instead, you should learn how to debate ads and capitalism in general by becoming a sub or by gifting to those less privileged than you and avoiding the ad that is going to play in 15 seconds. Thank you, dear Tavarishi.
Like you trying to wrestle control of the narrative frame away from them. Conversation is not a zero-sum game where they have to lose for you to win. Conversation is a positive-sum game. When we share our perspectives, we broaden our horizons, and we all win. Now, important distinction here, there's a difference between a discussion and a debate. A discussion is positive-sum because you're both just sharing your perspectives. A debate is zero-sum because you're actually trying to win. And in a debate, the point is to win over the audience, not necessarily the person that you're actually talking to. So in a discussion, we're always trying to build rapport. We're always trying to find common ground. Whereas in a debate, we're trying to win. So it's okay to make your opponent look.
So when you're one-on-one, when you're with your friend at a bar or, I don't know, in your D&D session, and it ended post-D&D session, I don't fucking know. Don't treat it as a debate because there's no fucking audience to win over, right? Unless there's like 5 other people in the room, you potentially could. But you're out, especially if the other person is not as aggressive, it will no longer matter what kind of points you're making. You're going to look like the fucking douchebag because you're pushing them more aggressively than the other guy.
Look dumb or play to the crowd a little bit. That's why I would advise you to never debate one-on-one because that's just an argument and that's just a waste of time.
Yeah, what we just said. Pre-watch!
And in just 70 plus years, they've become this economic superpower. That is through central economic planning and yes, allowing some of those private markets in.
That's by undercutting the U.S. on labor because they don't actually have to pay people very much. They don't have to pay them based on their values, so they can make people come over there and work far cheaper. Have their
Who sent those jobs abroad? Business owners. And who are business owners?
companies there, and then we buy their products cheaper. We are propping up China's economy, and we've been really stupid with our own policies when it comes to that.
That's fucking capitalism, sister. You want the government to protect domestic jobs from outsourcing to other countries where work can be cheaper because it leads to higher profit margins.
Very crafty framing right there.
Socialism is when the government takes my tendies.
Anna said we are propping up China's economy. But Malumbo is smart. He catches it and he asks, who is we?
Who is we? When you say we, who's in this we?
Bravo, bro. Fuck.
Because we did this, because we did that. Who is this metaphorical we?
So what's going on here? He's pointing out that China didn't steal our jobs, and we didn't voluntarily send them away. What happened was capitalists realized it would be cheaper to outsource labor, so they did. What we're seeing here is nationalism masking class conflict. So it's important that we be able to point out the real cause of people's suffering. Because a lot of people today are scared and angry, right? They're worried about the economy. They're worried about unemployment. They're worried about the opioid crisis. They feel squeezed by inflation. They have a sense of lacking purpose, of lacking any sort of community in their life. And
Here I come. Oh, here I come. Oh.
the Democrat Party, the left in America, has no real answer to that because they're totally beholden to corporate interests. So often the only way that people can make sense of their anger is through these right-wing populist narratives.
Who are we? Is the American people were like, I quit. I want my job to go to China because I want to prop up their economy because I am stupid.
They're told to blame China, immigrants, cartels, whatever. So how do we derail this? First, we have to acknowledge their pain. We have to acknowledge what they're going through. Literally just repeat what they said as if you were a stupid person. So it sounds like you're angry about jobs leaving for China because it puts stress on American workers. And they're going to say, yes. You know how powerful that is? That's rapport. That's you actually understanding them. And people crave that so much. They want to be understood. They want to be heard. It's so rare. So once you've done that, once you understand their suffering and you acknowledged it and you agree that it's a problem, then and only then can you present your counter narrative. I don't think it's the fault.
Said extremely simply, you need to be talking about the same thing. You need to be talking about the same thing. You know how many times you were misunderstood or you misunderstood your conversation partner because you're literally not talking about the same thing. You're not talking about the same thing. It's unfortunately on you to redefine it so it becomes on the same shit. Dude, stop the FBI shit, please. I'm a paranoid ass motherfucker with some weed in the backyard living in a narco state. Please stop. Oh my God. I'm sorry, my friend. I'm sorry. I didn't press anything.
Fault of Chinese people. I think it's the fault of the bosses. They're just looking for cheap labor. They don't care about us. Again, I need you to understand this isn't just a rhetorical tactic to deprogram the hogs. It goes way deeper than that. This is how you actually connect with people like a human being. I can't guarantee that you'll change their mind right then and there, but I can guarantee they'll be 10 times more receptive to what you have to say. But why is that? I want to drill into this briefly. It works because humans are hardwired for reciprocity, which basically means that people feel obligated to return favors. For example, if you'd never seen my videos before and I asked you to subscribe to the channel, you probably wouldn't do it because you have no idea who I am. But if you've been watching my videos for a while and thought they were valuable, then you probably would because I'd built up that goodwill. I'd shown you value. So if you think about this in the context of persuasion, you'll realize that what I've just been saying is that listening is weirdly way more persuasive than speaking. Because when you actually listen to someone, they'll feel compelled to return the favor.
How about no?
I'm always right. I do not care about contributing to rising class consciousness. I only want to always be right. And that is unironically half of you motherfucking communists out there. Jesus. Unfortunately. Wearing it as some sort of mantle of impressive intellectual capacity or some shit. Look at me. I have a better understanding of the world. You are a petty, simple peasant who believes that he shall be lifted up by his bootstraps. Sha. A lot of so-called commies, they don't do it because they actually believe long-term that this is an achievable project, but as a gotcha, as a new identity that they can take upon themselves so that they can feel better, so that they can feel superior to others as hotter take havers. Okay, it's the eternal cancer of Reddit brain.
And listen to you.
Giving people government aid makes them lazy.
Getting government aid makes you lazy. A great example of that is Elon Musk. The amount of government aid.
Holy, this got him right up for. Dude, there are literally fucking disappearing right in front of our.
The X Foundation gets in order to pursue inventions that don't work. How often did you hear about that tunnel? Elon Musk is just one example.
Holy shit, I just got hard. Oh wait, I was supposed to censor that, fuck.
Example of many different CEOs, multi-corporations who get government aid to be able to do these things just because they...
Look at this fucking little... He's about to commit a fucking hate crime. He's about to call him a... He is so close to saying the word, dude. Oh, my man is imagining himself in a fucking KKK robe down in Mississippi doing some crazy. Like, holy shit, bro.
They have the net worth.
Oh, man. Absolute masterclass in framing. Nobody likes thinking about how their tax dollars are subsidizing the richest man in the world, right? Like, everybody hates that. Not even the capitalists can defend it. They have to go say, oh, that's not real capitalism.
Yeah, I agree with you on this. I hate corporate welfare. I think it's the biggest perversion of capitalism out there.
In reality, of course, yes, it is absolutely in the interest of the capitalist class to use the state as a tool. In fact,
And if you ask them if they like Reagan, who is basically the inventor of modern neoliberal state works for the capitalists setup, that obviously the Dems helped out a lot with. I'm not saying that he fucking invented it. They would probably say that they love him.
That is.
Bro was looking at him like that white guy who got whipped in 12 Years a Slave. Holy shit. Fuck. I'm running with the idea that all the infrastructure projects Biden put through got sabotaged by business producers and Trump's or Elon's pocket, yeah.
Quite literally.
Yeah, there's a chance.
What capitalism is. It's a system in which the capitalist class is the ruling class. But none of those finer points matter, right? You don't even really have to explain that.
FML, right-wing libertarians, I'm going to give you finer points. FML, when right-wing libertarians say that there should be less government, and then there's literally less government because the private sector purchases basically the government and uses it to make more money. And they're like, what the fuck? What do you think would happen if there's no government? Where, do you think they would not...
Because you're already unfavorable.
Fuck. I swear to God, these need to be just lined up in
terrain when these sorts of arguments are being made. Because it allows us to point out the contradictions between the idealistic version of capitalism that we've been sold and the actual...
I said talk to. You need to sit down, line them up, and explain to every single one of them exactly what you mean.
reality of a capitalist system. The state is not a neutral actor that mediates between individuals. It is an institution that exists to perpetuate the domination of a class. Here's the thing, everyone intuitively understands this. So it's
libertarian types literally do the true capitalism has never been tried shit all the time. They call it corporatist or some shit. Yeah. The capitalist idealism only exists in their fantasy. I mean, we watched their idealism. There is a great documentary called ANCAPSTAN, Anarcho-Capitalism Country. It's very good. It's a 2-part documentary. It's genuinely impressive. I, for one, really stand for the Burger King army against the McDonald's imperialists.
Important for us to bring this contradiction to the forefront of their minds. If there's just like one task that we have, it is to give people the language to articulate their lack of freedom. That's it. Just plant the seed. They can shout crony capitalism or corporatism all they want. Because when they say stuff like that, they're on defense, which is exactly where we want them. So those are just some quick tips to help you communicate more effectively. There's so much more I could go into this video. I only covered... Most leftists suck at communicating. And the solution isn't pointing out logical fallacies, burying people in statistics, or any of the other cheap tricks that debate bros peddle online. The truth is, if you want to win people over, you need a...
Dude, this is the most conservative looking guy, but he's spitting straight facts. There you go. That's the fucking problem with communists. Jesus fucking Christ, man. If a commie looks like me and is pushing communism, then it's an insane fucking terrorist-ass looking LARPer. If they try to appear presentable, then they're a fucking conservative looking fucking racist looking motherfucker. There's no fucking winning. Like, there's literally no fucking winning.
A complete shift in your mindset. Hi, my name is Harper. I help new...
There are different audiences. Redefine yourself for the particular audience you're trying to pitch to. If you are actually in the so-called business of agitating for the cause. Jesus fucking Christ. This is supposed to be something that a fucking 2-year-old can understand. God.
Leftists get educated in order.
Just like with Hassan's jock style, absolutely. With JT's more like nerdy, I'm an intellectual style. We are doing multiple fronts. That's the whole point. You cannot have one person serving like a fucking queen to every single type of audience. Jesus Christ. It's a multi-front approach. If you need 10 different advertising campaigns to sell fucking sneakers because there's 10 demographics you want to sell to, I'm guessing that there also needs to be 10, 50, 500 approaches for 500 different demographics that you're trying to sell an ideology to. Jesus Christ, this is not fucking rocket science, dude.
Organized. I debated competitively and studied rhetoric for 4 years and then used what I learned to build an audience of over 100,000 followers. In other words, I know what I'm talking about when it comes to persuasion. So, because I want to help you avoid looking like a goofball, I thought we'd break down this lovely conversation, and I'll offer some do's and don'ts when it comes to crafting messages that actually resonate with people. Let's go.
Giving people government aid makes them lazy.
He made 2 videos for
fiscal cliffs. Because it makes people lazy.
He did, but it's different points. Okay, it's good.
The way it makes people lazy is not necessarily because they're bad people. It's because you have fiscal cliffs. You get this amount of welfare if you make under $24,000 a year. You make $25,000 a year, your benefits drop off. So it actually disincentivizes people from moving up, working harder, taking on more jobs. And it's a terrible structure.
I completely agree with that from a perspective of it creates animosity. If there was a system saying that you couldn't use a certain government aid program that you're already paying taxes to just because you make this amount, wouldn't you have animosity for those people below you?
There are cases where I think people are incentivized to work less hard in order to keep their income under a certain level so they can collect a certain amount of government money, which in that specific case, then yes, I guess it does incentivize laziness. But also, if you look at government programs like Medicare and Medicaid, they're some of the most highly approved of programs in the country. And when you make a welfare program universal, when you make it so it applies to everybody, it basically becomes politically invincible because nobody is going to argue for their grandma's health care to be taken away. And we have a problem in this country where 45,000 people are dying every single year because they don't have access to basic health insurance. And I think if we were to nip that in the bud and nationalize those giant pharmaceutical companies and make sure that healthcare is provided to everyone, we would actually stimulate a lot of innovation, a lot of labor, and a lot of hard work in this country because people would be less bogged down by medical bills and would be more healthy in general.
Okay, this is important. Here's a trap that has destroyed the left for decades. If you want to galvanize people, if you want to help build a movement that people are actually willing to fight for, you have to realize one thing. You don't get any points for playing small. I say this from personal experience. I used to be a full-on young conservative in high school. My favorite way to decompress after a long day at school was riding my bike around the neighborhood, listening to Ben Shapiro. Not kidding. So what?
I mean, I ain't gonna judge you, bruv. For like 3 seconds there, I thought that Jordan Peterson was a smart guy. Literally 3 seconds.
Changed. I didn't shift my perspective because of some spineless Democrat announcing a $2,000 earned income tax credit for small business owners.
I don't trust this kid. You're doing the fucking thing. You're doing the thing I talked about earlier, my friend. You're doing the thing. Don't do the thing where you judge a person based on what they look like. Maybe you're not the fucking target demographic for the type of agitation that he's trying to do.
Starting a business in a majority minority.
It does not mean they're wrong, okay?
No, it was Bernie saying free healthcare, period. Because even though I had been trained to hate everything he stood for at the time, I kind of had to hand it to him. He was inspiring. I could sense that he had some measure of vision. And that vision allowed him to challenge the status quo. So his ideas never left my mind. And over time, that seed grew. I started to think, maybe a better world is possible. And all of a sudden, I began to realize that the conservative pundits I loved so much existed solely to convince me that the status quo was unquestionable and to keep ordinary people divided. So what's the point to my story?
Same like the ads do. They divide the ad-watching lumpen proletarian scum of the earth with the salt of the earth, elevated, understanding, wise subscribers which do not watch them. So help us fight this class war through a little bit of mutual aid by throwing gifties or by lifting yourself up from the mud by your bootstraps and becoming a subscriber. And in the long term, avoiding ads, and in the short term, avoiding the ad that is going to play in 2 minutes and 30 seconds. An adless society is an equal society.
The point is, people are more attracted to bold vision than they are to smart policy. If you're anti-capitalist, that means that you...
Class trader subs. No, they're not. Just ad watchers are lumpens, bro.
Want to...
Lumpen erasure, bro.
Fundamentally transform society. And you gotta own that. Because guess what? Most people are fed up with business as usual. They're desperate for an alternative. Why am I so confident about that? One word, Trump. In 2016, he said, we're gonna build a wall and Mexico is gonna pay for it. And he won on that.
Wonderful.
In 2024, he said, we're gonna...
Thank you, Barry, for single-handedly fucking carrying the stream. Thank you, brother.
Send the military door to door to round up illegals and deport millions of people. And he won on that. And sure,
Barry and Vil have been fucking killing it recently. Thank you.
some of that appeal is pure bigotry. I get that. But I think a lot of it was just people want big change. So Eddie does a good job of sidestepping all that sort of like small ball policy wonkery and just asserting straight up, we don't want to rearrange deck chairs in the Titanic. We want to change the game entirely. And yes, that's polarizing. If you want people to love you, you got to be okay with people hating you too. The good news is, I truly believe that our proposals would benefit the mass of people. Our entire goal is to advocate for the interests of the working class, which is like 99% of the population.
I just quit my job, so I have to slow down, unfortunately. No, of course, man. What the fuck? And congratulations on quitting. It's always a congratulations when you quit.
Population. So
if there's anything I learned.
So as long as you communicate your message well, then theoretically, for every hater, we should get way, way more diehard supporters. If you want another example of why these galvanizing statements are so important, you can check out JFK's famous speech where he's basically announcing the Apollo program.
We choose to go to the moon in this decade and do the other things, not because they are easy, but because they are hard. Because that goal will serve to organize and measure the best of our energies and skills.
This right here is why this speech is famous. He said, "We choose to go to the moon, not because it is easy, but because it is hard." So what's he doing here? He acknowledges that this is going to be difficult, that it's never been done before, but he has purpose. He has a bold vision. And in communicating that purpose, he laid down the gauntlet and he gave the American people something to strive for. People want something to strive for. They want a big project. They want their life to mean something. Earned income tax credit on small, but that's not meaningful. Alleviating poverty is meaningful. Making sure that every child can grow.
This is called the mass line. To be a nerd about the fucking shit. It's called the mass line. And almost every successful revolution does, I don't care if you consider it successful or not, but a revolution that actually led to either the metamorphosis or complete rejection of capitalism used the mass line, okay?
Grow up and have access to a decent education. That is meaningful. Making sure that everybody has housing. Making homelessness a thing of the past. That is meaningful. Stopping climate change. That's meaningful. This is what defines our generation. People will sign on to that. I promise you. They will be massively attracted to something real. So don't sell out your ambition for the purpose of like trying to seem respect.
Depends, in my opinion, though, from person to person. Some people have the capacity to identify so much with their fellow man that participating in such a massive project, such as the restructuring of the way we manage society implies, or the lack of management, if it depends on the perspective, that will literally like start a fire in their hearts and create some of the most adamant and strongest child soldiers of any cause, including the socialist cause. But there are other categories of people where you gotta hit more, let's call it short-term and personal grievances. Shit like, dude, you're getting fucked over by your boss because no matter how much you make him, you will never get the full value of the shit that you create for him. That hits them as an individual, personal. Like, I'm getting screwed over. I don't want to get screwed over. So how do I not get screwed over, or my kid to get screwed over, or my friends, or like in general, by changing the system in which we find ourselves in. That's going to work for that type of person. For another, it's going to be the more bombastic, we do it not because it is easy, but precisely because it is hard. Because they have a grander image of what humanity can achieve. A grander image of a future that has not been seen before, but can, thanks to our laying of the first bricks, eventually come to fruition. Those are, not the first adopters, as the capitalists like to use in their marketing terminology. Those are the ones that fucking, dig it out of the ground. So yeah, I agree with him. Just for some people it might be scary, so you don't be bombastic with everyone.
Respectable, because people will never respect you for that. I'm not saying that being radical is good for its own.
Because I'm like, and I'm going super against my own advice to an extent. My new video, which is going to come in, I don't know, like 20 days or some shit, is going to be very much the opposite. It's going to be as large-scale thinking as I believe our species is capable of thinking at the current moment in time. It's going to be like a 45-minute mini pitch to socialists, and not even socialists. You'll see.
Own sake, then you're just like an edgelord. What I am saying is, we are in a time when many people are beginning to realize that the status quo is not working. And so we would be a fool to not present an alternative to that status quo. So stand on business. It's gonna get you flack at first, but I promise it's the only way for us to build mass appeal.
When China was pure communistic, 45 million people starved to death eating bark and dirt and leaves. And it's hard to know, is it doing better, all the things you like? Are you sure that's from the communist side? the Mao Zedong side?
I would argue.
Or is that from the capitalist side?
I would argue it's definitely the free market side.
Yeah.
I also just want to push back on one thing real fast.
This is a relatively decent gotcha, and it's why you will never hear me, almost never hear me, even though I have a crazy amount of criticism. Yo, Little Red Reno, thank you so much for the 50 buckaroos, bro. Thank you so much. That is very kind of you. There you go. I'm going to immediately send some of that back to chat. Let me give you some 5 subs. Thank you very much. But yeah, that's very, very, very kind of you, my friend. Here we go. 5 giftos. Let's go, baby.
A new child soldier.
Yeah,
I mean, subscriber.
I think Hakeem said it to me first when it clicked. The main reason you will, even though I have massive criticism, I'll say it openly to the OG chatters that are left
Wonderful.
all the way in
A
the
new
end.
child soldier. I mean,
The only way you
subscriber.
will never hear me go re-China and like openly hardcore shit on it is because at the current moment in time, it is the fastest and
Wonderful.
most
A new child
successfully
soldier. I mean,
developing
subscriber.
economy in the history of humanity. Okay? In the last 70 years, no country has ever developed as quickly as the People's
Wonderful.
Republic
A
of
new
China.
child soldier.
That
I
is
mean,
undeniable.
subscriber.
That is a fucking fact. So, me, as somebody trying to push socialism as a concept, as an idea, as a worldview,
Wonderful. A new
can
child
either
soldier. I mean,
give
subscriber.
the success of the People's Republic of China to market reforms and capitalism and say re-China 100% capitalist traders to the idea,
Wonderful.
etc.,
A new
etc.,
child
etc.
soldier. I mean,
But that
subscriber.
implies that the reason China has managed to develop so quickly and so well is because they have adopted capitalism. You are giving an incredibly strong point. Doesn't matter if you believe it or not. It does not. Okay? Oh, that's hypocritical. Yes, it is. Yes, fucking propaganda is hypocritical. It's not always even the truth. It's about what works. By constantly shitting on it, you are quite literally handing them China over, giving it to them for them to argue that the way that this gentleman right here argued. That's my only pitch. Why I do not suggest outside of leftist circles. In leftist circles, do it, no fucking problem. But outside of leftist circles, calling China capitalist, shitting on China, or calling them revisionist of this or that form, blah, 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 is just not productive if you're trying to agitate, especially when you can say utilizing socialist policies and building off of the communist revolution led by Mao and the Chinese working class and peasantry, we get to witness the fastest developing economy in the history of mankind. So you can say without even lying if you don't believe that they're currently socialist, but without handing it over to the capitalists. That's basically my point. This obviously does not apply to America because China always bad in the States, so don't use China as an example of anything, arguably. Especially considering that capitalists like to call China communist when it fits their narrative. Absolutely, yeah. Don't give them the narrative. Fuck that shit. Fuck that shit. I will never openly 100% say everything that I think about China and the Chinese Communist Party as it is now, because genuinely it would take me 3 streams to explain what my opinion on it is. But you will never, ever, ever hear me against the Chinese leadership or the People's Republic of China, because it's just when it comes to pushing the funnel that I like to speak about so much, it's stupid. It is dumb. It is not good. And I really suggest the same approach to you guys.
Are we still going to stick with the China thing?
When you talk to fellow communists, though, yeah, of course, like criticize or support, blah, 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 develop your theory through argumentation, respectful, etc., etc. But with the normies, don't give it to capitalists. That's all I'm saying.
Because
well, I just want to say,
so many great points
here.
By capitalists, yes, Kubashi, I agree with what you just said. Yeah, by capitalists, I mean like pro-capitalist, fucking bootlicking, fucking shit-eating peasants, which they usually are. It's always the brokest of the broke motherfucking guys that are talking about the free market economy, bro.
We need a prompter over here.
I know.
So many words for me to not get if you said you should glaze China or not. Jokula jebem tu pičku. You should glaze China. Yes. With non-socialists, you should glaze China and just like completely make it China's development a product of socialist development. Amongst fellow socialists, criticize, support, depending on your actual perspective. With non-commies, glaze. Yes, glaze. There you go. Did I use Zoomer enough terminology for you, motherfucker?
You know what I mean?
This is a tricky spot. If you don't know how to handle the tendency that
glaze it, but understand why you glaze it. Yes.
People have to pivot from topic to topic, your conversations will go nowhere. So how should you approach these situations? First of all, you have to understand why people do this in the first place. So usually people change the subject when they're uncomfortable because their beliefs are being challenged. So they try to...
I don't get it. Is China based or not based? There you go. I will not say.
Redirect the conversation to the
okay, civil war in chat can begin now.
Topic that they're more confident. Most of the time, this is subconscious. Our brains are hardwired to move away from pain. And since for most of us, our identity is wrapped up in what we believe, questioning our beliefs is painful. In the same way that losing a part of your body is painful. Again, I'm speaking from experience. I've felt this pain firsthand. Like I said earlier, I grew up conservative. So when I started thinking about left-wing ideas, I went through a stretch of time where I didn't know what I believed. That was painful. I remember just sitting in the living room one late winter afternoon, just feeling lost, almost with a headache, because I couldn't make sense of the world. So when someone moves the goalpost in conversation, you have to realize more often than not, they're just running away from pain. So now that you understand this dynamic, how do you harness it to become more persuasive? There are two pitfalls here, both of which you need to avoid in order to successfully communicate. I'm gonna give you an analogy from one of my favorite books, Dune. So in the world of Dune, everyone has like energy shields. So you can't just stab them or like use...
Given the credit of billions of people's hard work in developing their nation to a certain method of economic organization is mad reductive. It is, but unfortunately, arguments are also reductive, de facto. That's what an argument is. It reduces a point to an understandable concept that all parties can agree on. Unfortunately, yeah. That's why there's a difference between a conversation and reading a 500-page book. One is less reductive.
Use bullets.
Words, sentences are reduction. Concepts are reduction. Even definitions to an extent are reductive, which is a whole fucking... I don't want to haggle you bitches now.
So, the way that people fight in this world has to be very elegant, because the only way to actually score a blow on your enemy is for your knife to move slow enough that the shield doesn't immediately bounce it back. This is exactly what
your life is reductive, not if I reduce you first, baby.
Will experience in conversation.
Reduct you.
Imagine that like the shield is their ego, okay? On one hand, you can just let them change the topic whenever they want to. In which case, your conversation is going to go nowhere. You're never going to reach anybody that way. This is the equivalent of like in the Dune world, if you were to like go too slow and miss. Because anytime they start to question their beliefs, they'll resolve the tension by just like pivoting away to another topic. On the other hand, if you push them too hard or call them out or overtly try to control the conversation, they'll see you as an opponent and shut down. At this point, no matter how well you argue, you're not going to get through to them because you've tripped their ego. That's like the Dune equivalent of like hitting them too hard and their shield activates and your knife bounces off. So how do we navigate between these two extremes? It's a delicate process, but in my opinion, the best way to bring people back to the original topic is with questions. Okay, we can talk about immigration if you want, but one more thing on that last point. Just help me understand. What do you think? Sort of like that. Let's be honest. Most of the people you encounter are going to get their talking points from MSNBC or Fox or Joe Rogan or whatever. Asking people questions is a great non-combative way to get them to realize they don't know as much as they thought they did on a given topic. And at that point, you've essentially plowed the soil. You can gently plant the seed of a new idea, not as a superior, not as someone handing down the truth from on high, just sharing your perspective. I'm telling you, if you come into this with an inauthentic, manipulative mindset, people are going to see that, they're going to resent you for it, and they're going to be right to. By the way, if you're not aware, this is a sequel to my first video covering the same topic. So if you haven't seen that yet, definitely go check it out after this video.
It's crazy to me to hear somebody say China's safer though, and like you can literally be disappeared from the streets, like even your celebrities, famous tennis players,
The
famous
FBI.
people. They are.
Shout out Julian Assange.
Yeah, I mean, shout out Julian Assange, but we are not incarcerating Julian Assange right now. We are trying to extradite him here for trial. We're not opposed to.
We're doing our best, and he's been sitting in Belmarsh.
And I've spoken out with him. I actually work with his brother on the campaign to get him freed. But what I'm saying is, we don't have political prisoners in the U.S. We don't. Who are they? Who are they?
We assassinate them. Yeah,
Well,
sure, yeah.
Who? Edward Snowden.
Every prisoner is a political prisoner because laws are defined by the economic and social system put in place, which defines certain behavior as illegal and other behavior as illegal. Legality is not a moral concept. It is one that is installed by whatever is defined as the elite of a particular society as a definition of what is okay, that is later to be followed by the larger population of said state or society or community or whatever the fuck you want to call it. Yes, every single prisoner is a political prisoner. Should weed be legal or not legal is a political question. Therefore, passing a law where weed is illegal and the arrest of those who distribute or consume weed makes them political prisoners. You could go as extreme as, you know, even on the topics of murder. Every single prisoner is a political prisoner. There is no such thing as a non-political prisoner. Yes, including murderers and rapists even, yes. This is fucking, are you 12, bro? Are you fucking 12 years old?
Who have we assassinated?
Jaleel Montekim
Fred Hampton
was in jail for 70
We did that?
years.
The government did that? I'm fine with this. I detest the FBI. I detest most policing agencies. I've done a ton of work on criminal justice reform.
If you can find a moment of agreement like this, great. As a matter of fact, if you agree with your conversation partner on anything, it actually is well worth it to go out of your way to point that out. Why? Because it establishes social capital. Think about the conversation as a bank account. When you push back against what they're saying, that's like making a withdrawal of social capital. The problem is, too many people come in thinking that if they just demolish the other person's point of view, then the other person will be forced to admit that they got owned and change their opinion on the spot. But in reality, like you and I both know, this is not how human interactions work. As a matter of fact, like just destroying somebody can actually reinforce their beliefs. So if we think back to the bank analogy, we understand why. Hammering on your disagreements is like making a bunch of withdrawals without depositing anything. Of course, you have to spend social capital to advance your point of view. But if you're trying to spend what you don't have, you are in debt, my friend. So let's apply.
By the way, from the past, I can tell that most of the conservatives on Jubilee are probably professional debaters or pundits. Yeah, they often are. They usually catch the libs or the socialists. Yeah.
Apply this principle to the
or even like gay people, minority people, blah, blah, blah.
Clip we just watched. Hannah likes capitalism, but she's willing to admit that domestic repression and military interventionism are undesirable. So your task in this situation is to build social capital by establishing that you both agree.
And then linking it to the thing you're trying to argue. We both agree that military invasion's bad. And after we both understand that we're on the same page and that military intervention is bad, we introduce an explanation of why military invasions happen in the first place and introduce a new worm to her head that can slowly develop into a critical opinion.
Then spend that social capital by explaining how suppression of dissidents at home and imperialism abroad is a natural consequence of a capitalist system. Because
yes, I did not pre-watch. I'm just really smart, and so is he. So two smart people are just saying incredibly, incredibly, incredibly smart things. Oh my god. I can't take it too seriously. Dude, I was dying under the mouse.
Because it is absolutely in the interest of the capitalist class to do those things. Again, we're just trying to gently introduce a new perspective in a way that doesn't threaten them. And if they understand your perspective and you've presented it in a reasonable manner, it's like you've given them this lens that they can carry around. That's your worldview. And they're going to prefer their lens, their worldview, because they're used to it. But over the course of months or maybe even years, if you've left a good impression, they're going to get curious and start to peek through yours. And if the image they see through that lens is much more crisp and full and powerful, they may begin to prefer it. So you need to present your position in a...
You need to riz them up. Exactly, chat. Riz, hard riz.
reasonable way, but that's only part of the story. Having a conversation is actually the last step in the persuasion process. Let me explain. Marshall McLuhan, who sort of pioneered the philosophical study of media theory, coined this phrase: the medium is the message. Basically, this means that what is being communicated is inseparable from how it's being communicated. So think about this. In your personal interactions, what is the medium for your message? The medium is you. Love it or hate it, people are intuitive. They say not to judge a book by its cover, but we all do, every day. It's how we process unlimited information in limited time. Our brain uses shortcuts, which means people are way more likely to perceive your position as reasonable if you present yourself in a reasonable way. Now,
very dangerous ideas here.
Now, this doesn't mean that you have to go get a crew cut like me or wear a suit everywhere. Don't be a weirdo. Be authentic to your own style. But however you choose to present yourself, just think, how could I put 10% more effort into this? For example, everybody in this Jubilee video has clearly taken the time to make sure that they're showing up as their best self, even though they all have very distinct vibes. So it's not just about the clothes you wear or the poses you strike. You need to live an upright life because you are an example for the people around you. We are asking people to fundamentally transform society. That's a big ask. Why would anyone sign on to that if we don't inspire confidence in the people? I think that it honestly makes people on the left uncomfortable to talk like this. So I want to dispel that taboo. I want this channel to be a place for leftists who are trying to learn, who are trying to grow, who want to hold themselves to a higher standard. By the way, if you're a new leftist and you want to get more educated, I'll leave a resource for you.
Check out the video, really good video. Harper O'Connor. We also have a deprogram episode that I think just came out on relatively the same topic, but specifically about doing it online. If you want to argue for socialism and do it online, I mean, episode like 90% of our viewership is off YouTube, but you guys, if you're YouTube pilled, you have it right here. This one, the deprogram needs you, or on Spotify like a normal human being, or Apple Podcast like a normal rich human being. Very good, very nice. Now, write ! Discord, and you will see the invite link to my Discord. By the way, we have a new cover photo on the Discord. I was kind of proud of it. I was making it so bored yesterday. Wait, where is it? Let me see if I can open it like this. It's kind of chill. It's pretty nice. It's kind of stupid, honestly. I hate it. I can't fucking show it. Wait, maybe through Imgur. Imaguru. Guru. So if you want to be part of something as fucking ratchet and insane as this, consider joining the Discord server, and we will all look at you like this, okay? If you see yourself in one of these characters, okay, except if you see yourself in one of these characters. Do write !Discord and join the community. There's like 4,000 unhinged commies on there. I hang out there literally every day now after I did some self-crit. So you're very welcome to join. This is Central Committee. These are the cops, okay? These are the admins. General talk is pretty chill. It's where I usually hang out. These are all the cool kids. This is like a few unhinged chatters that we always have. A lot of fucking Doomer e-girls. Like, I don't know why my server has like 7 million Doomer e-girls. Obviously, we have Chads. Obviously, we have very nice mods. These are two types of mods, okay? Little fucking cops and just very chill cats. And then we have the fucking animals over in Ideological Battleground that spend 90% of their day talking about niche disagreements on ideologies that never came to fruition or materially manifested. Pretty incredible stuff. Yes. So yes, !Discord, join the server, say you're from the stream. I would love to see you there and hang out. With that being said, I have to run because I have to record a All Presidents or War Criminals episode with my dear friends from the D program in exactly 20 minutes. So I need to eat before I do that. I'm not going to raid anybody today because I don't feel like it. And I will see you on Thursday, baby. Thank you, Gabriel. Controversial opinion. Castro smoked a cigar cooler than Tito. I mean, Castro sent cigars to Tito. And he is fucking Cuban. That's where cigars to an extent come from. So, of course, Tito drank better than Castro. Castro smoked better than Tito. Tita titano titutu. Okay, fucking beautiful pieces of shit. I will see you in 2 days. Many kisses, many kisses. Thank you to the follows, subs, and my beautiful, beautiful cops. Bye-bye.